So we will just, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good evening. This is Michelle Arminio and the board members and our administrators. We would like to call the meeting of Monday, April 26th, 2021, Monroe Township Board of Education meeting to order, please. Shall we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance of a flag? I have the flag. Mr. Gorski, you have the flag? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America
and to the
republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. We'll have Mr. Gorski call roll, and then we shall begin.
Thank you. Ms. Arminio,
Here.
Ms. Belko,
Here.
Ms. Bierman,
Here.
Mr. Chiarella, Mr. Nicotinsky,
Here.
Mr. Pelori,
Oh, I heard a here.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Pelori.
I'm present.
Thank you. Mr. Rutsky,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Siegel,
Here.
Ms. Skirby,
Here.
Mr. Tofano.
Here.
Madam Board President, you have all members present in a quorum this evening.
Thank you all for being present, and we will go right into the statement.
In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published, an electronic notice provided by having the date, time, and place thereof posted April 16th, 2021 at all schools on the district website at https://www.monroe.k12.nj.us/ at the Home News Tribune, the Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality. Instructions for making a public comment. To make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature. When you are called on to speak during public forum, your microphone status will be set to unmute. Please do not attempt to unmute yourself, as this may cause your microphone to stay muted. When called upon, you will be given the option to share your device's camera with the rest of the panelists and attendees during your speaking time. If you choose to do so, then simply click the video camera icon. After you are unmuted, please state your name and address for the record. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 4 minutes duration or less in accordance with Board Bylaw 0167. After you have finished speaking, you will be muted and your permission to share your camera will be disabled. Please turn off the raise hand feature when you are finished speaking. Madam President, we have one submitted public forum comment.
Yes.
That I believe is the second public forum, unless.
Yes. No, I agree with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And it's a 14-page one, so we may not be reading it in its entirety. Is that correct?
Well, a email superseding it was sent in, and it's only a little more than 2 pages. So
Okay, so
I
I'll
think that's
have you read that. I did not print that one out. Okay. When the time comes. The next order of business will be the approval of the minutes, please. We have first in order the Public Board of Education meeting on March 15th, 2021. I have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Pelori,
Second.
Karen Bierman, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Michelle,
Yes.
Closed session.
can I ask a question or make a comment about them?
Yes.
That was the public meeting, and I just, looking through the minutes, I noticed that the public forum, when people call in, their comments are paraphrased, and the emails that are sent in are being added verbatim, the entire email. So I just think that we should decide which way we're going to handle public comment going forward. Either everything should be paraphrased or everything should be verbatim to be fair to the public.
Okay, well, how do you want to handle this then? Do you want to keep this until that we change that and put everything verbatim, or should we just add to it what's already done?
I think it's fine for tonight, but I think going forward,
Going
we
forward?
need to have consistency. It's either verbatim or they're all paraphrased.
Okay.
Ms. Arminio, if it
Yes.
pleases the board, I'll paraphrase each one going forward. It's simply the nuance of this that caused that to be added that way, but we'll paraphrase it.
Oh, you mean for all?
Yes.
Okay, but when we do, so, but that does bring up an interesting question. When we do have people, writing in, that becomes a public record. And that public record will be contained and recorded as in full. So I think for tonight, we'll just go ahead and do this, but maybe we will revisit the verbatim because it still doesn't solve the problem that Ms. Skirby has brought to the table. Because, the public record will be verbatim, and yet those who verbally called, who telephoned will be not. So it'll be a different. So perhaps we will just talk about that maybe at a policy meeting or something.
Okay.
Is anybody else on the board want to make mention of that? Go
Ms.
ahead,
Arminio?
Dr. Alvick.
I
Yes.
guess my only question there is, we do videotape and record all of our meetings, and all of our meetings are available online. So everyone's comments are verbatim on the video.
Yes.
I'm not
except-
sure if that makes a difference, Mr. Gagliardi, I'm not sure.
Well, Mr. Gagliardi, may I mention, then I'd ask you to comment on that. My thought is when we do the minutes as we're doing tonight, that becomes the official public record. And unless we keep all of the videos together, I don't know if that video is considered a public record. Mr. Gagliardi, would you help us on that?
I sure would. So the video is a public record. So just as you correctly noted, Madam President, that a citizen could request the written comments that are submitted to the board, a citizen could also request a copy of the video. So I think the solution, I say respectfully, and along the lines of what the superintendent was saying, I think the solution is an easy one. The minutes paraphrase all comments, no matter the medium in which they are submitted. Any member of the public who wants to see the full record, quote unquote, is able to see the written record as well as the video record.
Could we then put in our minutes that a video record is available as a public record? So people who do look at the comments, they would be notified that they could always ask for the public record in video, or they can find it.
Obviously, that's up to the board, but as a matter of legal advice, that statement is a true statement. That is, a citizen could request the video if they were so inclined through Oprah.
Okay, Mr. Gorski, does that work for you and Dr. Alvick
Yes, ma'am.
and Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Okay, great. So go ahead. Anybody else? Okay, so let's try that again. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any not in favor? Any objections? Any other additions? And any abstentions or recusals? No? Mr. Gorski, you're okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The next one is the closed session meeting of March 15th, 2021. May I have a motion? Ms. Belko?
Motion.
And then Mr. Tofano. Any comments before we vote? Okay, same, well, there's no video of the closed session. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any recusals or abstentions or no votes? No. Okay, we're good, Mr. Gorski?
Yes, ma'am.
Seeing none. Next one is the special public Board of Education meeting on March 22nd. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Tofano and then Karen Bierman. Okay, any questions, additions on that one? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone?
Michelle, I abstain.
And Mr. Rutsky abstains? Okay.
So noted.
Okay, I think that motion passed as well, Mr. Gorski?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Closed session minutes of March 22nd. I have a motion.
Motion.
Ms. Belko and, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tufano and then Ms. Belko seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any recusals, abstentions, or no votes?
I abstain again, Paul.
Mr. Rutsky abstains. Think that passes, Mr. Gorski?
Yes, Mr. Rutsky abstaining. Everything passes. Thank you.
Okay, so we are done with the approval of the minutes. Thank you all. Our next order of business is our student board members. I hope we can get Miss Jane on video and Miss Carver. Shall
Mr.
we have
Mazzola, can you bring over Kaylee Craver and Samara Jane?
Carver?
They're available now.
Hello, Miss Craver. How about Miss Jane? We still don't see her if she chooses. Hi. Well, we're happy to see you this month. Your video is going. So, Miss Craver, would you like to begin and give us your report?
Yeah, I'll start us off. Okay. At Oak Tree on April 22nd, they held a pop-up library day where students were able to visit the outside of the school, and they took out books and even got seeds to plant for Earth Day. On April 23rd, there was a rainbow day for autism, each grade dressed in a different color of the rainbow to support autism awareness. And this week, they start the Unified Sports Spirit Week. They also raised over $10,000 for Jump Rope for Heart. At Brookside this week, they are participating in a Unified Week of Respect, like many of the other elementary schools. In the middle school, Mrs. Anju Chawala's sixth grade science class designed and constructed balloon rockets and cars after learning Newton's law of motion. The Monroe Township Middle School Builders Club, led by Mr. Fields and Miss Samut, held a staff Philly pretzel sale fundraiser after school on Friday the 16th to help benefit local community organizations providing COVID-19 relief. The Sunshine Committee kicked off a new weekly Sparkles initiative to highlight camaraderie and community in the building. Every week, staff may give thanks or a shout out to a specific person or department. And then at the high school, the Rho Kappa Honor Society is holding a fundraiser for free rice, where students get to play trivia questions, and for every question they answer correctly, a donation of 5 grains of rice will be made. Tomorrow evening is the induction ceremony for the National Honor Society student juniors, and the Wind Ensemble will begin after-school rehearsals once a week starting May 6th in preparation for their concert later that month.
Okay, Ms. Craver, would you like to add anything from your presidency?
Actually, a couple of students have contacted me this month since we've gone back to school full time, and they're wondering if there's any way we could reconsider the one-way hallways and stairwells, because they found themselves spending excess time in the hallways in bigger groups than they thought they would if they didn't have to follow the arrows.
Okay, we'll let the administration take care of that. Dr. Alvick and Dr. Lehman will perhaps address that. Not this evening, I guess. Dr. Alvick, would you like to have some time to discuss
Well,
that?
yeah, we'll reach out to Dr. Higgins. That would be a decision at the high school level.
Okay, excellent. Anything else, Ms. Craver?
No, that was it.
Well, thank you. That was a great report. May I have Ms. Jane? Welcome, and we're anxious for your report in person.
So this month at Mill Lake, they fundraised for Lymphoma and Leukemia Foundation. The students are participating in a Spirit Week and donating $1 each day they participate. Additionally, next week, Mill Lake is teaming up with the District Unified Program for a Week of Respect. The students will engage in a week of activities and challenges promoting respect and acceptance. At Barclay Brook this month, they also had their Unified Week of Respect. They are encouraging students to participate in their spirit days and also take part in Padlet challenges. Any student who completes the daily Padlet challenge will be entered in a drawing for a prize every day. At Applegarth this month, they were celebrating Autism Acceptance Month. The Student Council 5th graders were reading books about acceptance to the 4th graders. Applegarth also completed their McFoods food drive, and the 5th grade collected the most food. They also began their jump rope for heart this month. At Woodland, Mr. Schultz, the physical education teacher, has kicked off the 5th and final virtual challenge to Hershey Park, Pennsylvania, which is about 145 miles from Woodland School. The goal is to provide virtual experiences while maintaining motivation and fitness benefits to the students. In addition, during the week of May 3rd, Woodland will be participating in the Kids Heart Challenge. And all the students are participating to support the American Heart Association. And the Student Council hosted a poster contest for Black History and Women's History Month.
Thank you, Ms. Jane. Would you like to add anything? Any comments or anything from your classmates, or any considerations since we've been back in the buildings?
No, I haven't gotten any complaints yet.
Well, how about accolades? We'll take accolades as well. You know,
There hasn't been a lot of feedback. I think a lot of people are still home. Not a lot of people that I know have gone back to school. They're not really comfortable yet. So.
Okay, well, that's good feedback. Okay, thank you very much. All right, thank you. Okay, next we will go to the public hearing and the final budget. Mr. Gorski, I believe you are on stage. You are muted, sir.
Hate when that happens. Dr. Alvick, do you want me to start?
Yes, you can start.
All right, we have the slides, and these are 95% equal to the preliminary budget slides that we presented earlier. But for everybody's benefit who may not have been there at the meeting, Ms. Arminio, I know you'd like to go through everything once again.
Please.
And we're happy to do that. But at the inception of this, I would just like to explain what the differences are from the preliminary that was adopted by the board to what we're presenting tonight. We received a federal grant to help COVID preparedness. It's called the ESSER2 grant. And it's approximately a $550,000 grant that's on the agenda tonight. And what that grant afforded us was a revenue source that had been previously unidentified to buy protective plastic shields for desks for next year. And Mr. Tague budgeted for these in his facilities supply budget. So the expediency of the order of these desk shields provided by this grant money allowed us to buy the shields now and submit the order and receive them before July 1st, which is the earliest time we could have budgeted and did a PO for them the way they were originally budgeted. So there is about $125,000 for these plastic shields that has now been eliminated from the 21-22 budget. And that created appropriation space under the maximum spending authority of approximately $125,000. Dr. Alvick, Dr. Lehman, Mrs. Ruella, and others got together, and we reviewed our priority list of appropriations that are waiting for room in the budget. And at the very top of the list was a supervisor position for special ed. It is all of our opinion that this position will provide the greatest benefit most broadly to the entire special education program. It will keep up with the volume of students that are classified in our district. It is similar to what other school districts of our size have, meaning multiple supervisors for that department. And again, it will provide the most benefit to improve special education. So it was presented to the Finance Committee that we would remove $125,000 of face shield from the 21-22 budget and procure them now through the grant. And we will replace that $125,000 with a special education supervisor and benefits. Those are the only changes to the budget. So starting off, this budget has been prepared by the superintendent of schools, Dr. Alvick, Dr. Lehman, the assistant superintendent of schools, and myself. But we are the responsible administrators for it by job description, but this is really a group process that extends all levels of administration to the school administrators, even to teaching staff who provide a zero-based budget, meaning they start from scratch and determine what they need next year to provide a thorough and efficient education. They submit then their budgets at the early part of the timeline. We go through a rigorous defense rounds where we compare their budgets to other schools of the similar grade configurations. We compare them with board and district goals. And then they are incorporated into a general budget, which is not finalized until we receive our state aid award in March. Then the final custom tailoring is performed to the budget, and it's presented to the board at the preliminary meeting and where it was adopted. So next slide, Mr. Mazzola. Finance Committee, I beg your pardon, the Board of Education consists of Mrs. Michelle Arminio, Board President, Mr. Adi Nikitinsky, Board Vice President, Mrs. Kathleen Belko, Ms. Karen Bierman, Mr. Ken Chiarella, Mr. Andy Pelori, Ms. Rupa Siegel, Ms. Chrissy Skirby, Mr. Peter Tefano, and the Jamesburg representative, Mr. Paul Rutsky. All of those members had an integral process in this budget through committee deliberations to various specific subject matters covered in those committees. So every one of these members deserves to be commended for their contributions to this budget, as do the student board members who we hear from more and more at the meetings. Finance Committee is most prominent in the development of budget. That's Mr. Ken Chiarella, Chairperson, Ms. Karen Bierman, Vice Chair, Ms. Kathleen Belko, Mr. Adi Nikitinsky, Ms. Michelle Arminio as ex officio. That means the board president sits in on those meetings as a member. And Mr. Andy Pelori was the alternate. Next slide, please. Our budget is designed around the district vision statement, which is the Monroe Township Board of Education commits itself to all children by preparing them to reach their full potential and to function in a global society through a preeminent education. Next. The mission statement is how the vision is accomplished. The Monroe Township Public Schools, in collaboration with the members of the community, shall ensure that all children receive an exemplary education by well-trained, committed staff in a safe and orderly environment. And the next presentation is the district goals. Goal number 1 was to engage the school community in the development of a strategic action plan for the Monroe Township School District. Goal number 2 is to develop a referendum project by working with the community using the latest enrollment projections to address student growth. Goal number 3 is to revise as necessary and execute the Monroe Township School District Restart and Recovery Plan for the 2021 school year. This will include meeting all health and safety requirements in the NJDOE The Road Back document, assessing all students and addressing learning needs, and incorporating social emotional practices to support all students, staff, and families. The board goals are to continue to support the strategic plan and the district efforts through the pandemic. Goal number 2 is to continue to evaluate and adopt a plan for enrollment growth and facility needs. Goal number 3 is to continue professional development for board members and achieve board certification through NJSBA, that's New Jersey School Board Association's Academy program in 2021. Boardsmanship training to be included within this goal to improve effectiveness of the board. That's a 2-year goal. And the same executive summary is being presented tonight as before. Monroe Township School budget for the 21-22 school year was developed within specific parameters set forth by the board's budget philosophy. The board's budget philosophy is what starts the budget process in September, October timeframe. And that's where the board decides and directs administration what goals specifically are to be attained in that year's budget after being provided with much information about unhoused students, about facility needs, curriculum needs, about taxation and state aid and revenue projections. And that is the most important part of the inception of the budget. This year's budget is a challenge because it needs to meet the needs of 433 projected additional students and 1,500 current unhoused students. That's technically defined as students beyond the capacities of the schools to accommodate them. Doesn't mean they can't provide a safe and thorough education, but it just means it's far from optimal. Perform only capital outlay projects required for health and safety. Replace buses in accordance with the retirement schedules and replace contracted bus routes with new in-house fleet. Limited expansion of curriculum and staffing. And of course, all of this requires the budget to cap to meet the needs of the above, mainly driven by student enrollment growth. The budget has been professionally constructed to afford every student an opportunity for an exemplary education by well-trained and committed staff in a safe and secure environment. Opportunity is made available through a comprehensive curriculum which offers diverse course offerings, co-curricular clubs, and activities. We believe that our proposed budget continues to be more efficient every year, as evidenced by a successful county budget efficiency review where Monroe was exemplified for many best fiscal practices. And again, key budget considerations based on the aforementioned data: increased student enrollment, meeting the needs of aging facilities, New Jersey student learning standards, considering student-teacher ratios, and the tax impact on the community. What is the budget creation timeline? Well, it's the establishment of the budget philosophy, as I mentioned. Second, we review enrollment patterns and projections. Third, we review staffing needs. We then develop the budget. We go through the rigorous budget defense rounds. We wait for the governor's budget address, whereby 2 days later, the state aid award is presented to school districts. We have a tentative budget adoption in March, and then we have a final public hearing in April or May. We also have a budget timeline document that is available on our website if you would like to see this in more detail. What is included in the budget? Dr. Lehman, you want to take some of these?
Sure. You can move to the next slide because it's inclusive of this, but we have staff, curriculum, some things to meet our facilities. Specifically on the curriculum and instruction side, we, through the budget process, prioritized and really hashed out what textbook adoptions were needed. We have some 2020 NJSLA or NJSLS standards revisions coming up over the next 2 years. So we're in the process of coordinating textbook adoptions to align with curriculum revisions. The timelines for those standards revisions may be tweaked slightly as the timeline was set prior to COVID, and the State Board of Ed is in the process of potentially granting a little extra time to deal with that, but we are proceeding as with the initial timeline as expected. So all those needs are woven in here. We spent a lot of time and a lot of resources assessing our students formatively and summatively, and that's where you see some of the running records, the NWEA MAP assessment. That's something that we were able to give throughout this pandemic, and it's informing our instruction. And we will be rolling out the spring MAP assessments this spring to help us prepare for what we have coming up in the fall with our students returning into the building. I'll share some more information specifically on those assessments once we get through our spring window. As I've inferred the past few months, our NWA MAP assessments along the way have been very favorable, and that's kudos to our staff in their teaching throughout this pandemic. But we'd like one more kind of look at our year-end data to make sure we have a good preparation for the fall. Other things we have in there, we have a whole child and diversity focus, and that's something we're weaving into our strategic planning as well. And of course, professional development and AVID is a huge piece of our planning for both at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Next slide. Mr. Gorski.
Sure. What specifically is included in the 21-22 budget? 22 additional full-time positions of staff, including instructional mainly and support staff, about $1.4 million. Instructional resources, including additional textbooks and technology. Textbooks are a little over 300,000, technology is 3.3 million. However, the 3.3 million is not all being budgeted for this year because we match the financing of the technology with its expected lifespan of 5 years. And we're going to, again, engage in a 5-year lease purchase with an interest rate that is very historically low, about 1%, to better fit those purchases in the budget and match the financing with the useful life of the technology. Transportation, we have 6 54-passenger buses with cameras that are required to be replaced by statute and board policy. The limitation on a bus in this district is 15 years, or if it should have any material issues, mechanical issues that require it to go earlier. Next. Capital improvements. The board has already approved in a preliminary budget engineering design for the replacement of HVAC equipment and controls. And I believe that was at the Monroe Township Middle School. That's $100,000. Flooring projects at Barclay Brook School, $44,000. Updated bathroom facilities at the Monroe Township Middle School, $16,200. Roof replacement for the 1997 wing, including ancillary support roof structures at the Monroe Township Middle School, $927,000. Remove existing HVAC rooftop equipment at Mill Lake School, $140,000. Replace VAT floor tiling as required by the Adhero plans at the Monroe Township Middle School, $88,000. Replace carpet and VAT tile at Woodland, $38,000. Total of $1.3 million that this district is committing in this budget to meet the needs and maintain the investment that the community has provided authority for in its facilities. Next. Where does the budget resources come from? 3.61% comes from excess surplus fund balance that is being carried over from 2 budget years previous. That is the area of the budget that is actively managed by administration. Dr. Alvick, Dr. Lehman, Mrs. Allen, and I, we meet and review the budgets at least monthly, and there's an intent there to spend less than what is budgeted. And the excess, called excess surplus, is recycled to a budget 2 years later, and it's designed to offset taxes. The second is transfer from other funds. That's 0.74%, less than 1%. Local taxes are decreasing as far as a percent. Years ago, it was 88%. It's dropped to 85% with the additional state aid that we received. However, that is still an extraordinary number. That 85 cents out of every dollar to support education in Monroe Township Board of Ed is coming from local property taxes. Tuition from Jamesburg is about 3% of the budget. Transportation fees, where we actively seek jointures with other school districts, is about 0.25%. Miscellaneous revenue, about 0.4%. Extraordinary aid Medicare reimbursement, about 1/3%. State aid is just under 6%, and federal aid, unfortunately, is 1%. Next slide. This is a calculation of what we use the terms going to cap. Going to cap means budgeting to maximum spending authority, which allows you to look back at your previous year general fund tax levy. For 2021 school year, the previous year, that was $108,062,274. The budget guidelines provide for an automatic enrollment adjustment. You would think that Monroe would be eligible for an enrollment adjustment to cap because of our projected 400+ students. However, it's based on a trend line analysis that's from the state. It's proprietary. We've never seen it, and we're not eligible for an enrollment adjustment. So the pre-budget adjusted levy is $108,062,274. The 2% cap is the calculation you see below, where it's inflated by 2%. That does not mean everyone's taxes are only going up 2%. That was a misunderstanding of this from Governor Christie's first introduction. It means that last year's general fund levy is increasing by 2%. And that's a bottleneck for revenues for this district because our appropriation needs are not limited. Then you can apply any banked cap that the district may have. Monroe has none remaining. So the 2021 tax levy cap is 110,223,519. Last year's was 108,062,274. So the increase in the general fund tax levy is $2.1 million. That's pretty lean as far as growth of the tax levy. It's the leanest that we've seen in a number of years because of there's no banked cap, there's no adjustments for enrollment, there's no adjustments eligible to this district for healthcare spending because our healthcare increases are so lean. Next slide. Key facts on state aid. There are two types. Equalization aid is determined by property wealth and income levels. It's designed to support a district's adequacy budget. Monroe has never, since I've been the business administrator, received any equalization aid. The next type is categorical aid, and as its name implies, it awards districts state aid based on their eligibility for certain categories, including special education, security, to name a few. Monroe qualifies for a few of these categories, but it is limited in the award due to over-adequacy status. And again, general fund state aid is approximately 6% of our total revenue, and that's among the lowest in the county. This is a comparison of our state aid award. You can see we've received zero equalization aid. And in the categorical section, special education aid went from 3,381,921 to just over 5 million. Security aid remained the same at just over 100,000. Transportation aid, $2.7 million, same as last year. And transportation aid is an award based upon your efficiency rating. And Monroe receives one of the higher transportation categorical aid awards compared to other school districts because we are the most efficient transportation unit in the county and among the most efficiently run transportation offices in the state. Total state aid increase, $1.6 million, 26%. We have 3 years remaining on the installation of S2. And preliminary discussions with the county office indicate that we will again receive a slight uptick in state aid next year and the 2 years thereafter before we are fully funded according to the School Funding Reform Act of 2008. Next slide. We provided on the district website a sources of revenue, which is a comparative schedule comparing all of the revenue sources for all funds from last year to this year. We refer to that as Schedule A. We also provide a lengthy state aid history, which shows the cumulative state aid awards for the past 10 years at least. That's called Schedule B. And that takes us to the next slide where we're going to talk about appropriations. Budget spending or appropriations is driven by student enrollment. And the 7,361 projected students is recognized by Dr. Lehman, Dr. Alvick, and myself to be a little higher than what we would expect. It's coming off of a stale enrollment report projection. And although we don't think we're going to hit 400 additional new students next year, based on our increases over the last few, the average has been about 200 to 250, and that's what we are expecting. All of the data provided there on previous years from 13-14 to 2021 is based off of the audited application for state school aid, which every October 15th, we count every student in the district, and we report that to the state. The only projected number is the far right column for 21-22, and that won't be ready until the October 15th, 21 ASSA is performed. Next slide, please. Where does the money go? When you take into consideration the instructional benefit cost and you attribute that to instruction, greater than 60 to 65% of all spending is directly related to instruction. We spend about 1.3% on athletics and co-curricular activities, 7.28% on debt service, and that's been decreasing as our amortization schedules are maturing. Administration is 2.86%. I believe we have a slide on that coming up. We are very low on administrative cost per pupil as compared to our peers. Capital projects are less than 1%. Many school districts have been kicking those capital projects down the road. We have not. We have budgeted for anywhere from a $2 to $4 million capital project, usually in the area of roof replacement and things of that nature every year to try to maintain the investment that this community has made in our schools. Grants are about 1%, transportation is about 5%, and other, which is anything that's not classified there, is about 7%. Next slide, please. The comparative appropriation details provided on our website under the 21-22 budget tab, and it provides a reformatted comparison of all funds spending by category for the 21-22 school year compared to the current base year 2021. And we went to a greater extent this year to delineate strictly regular programs, forgive the use of the word, in black text in the title, special education specific programs in blue, and combinations where it serves both purposes in purple. That's on appropriation detail schedule C. Next slide, please. This is the district's administrative cost per pupil from the 2020 Taxpayer Guide to Educational Spending, which is produced by the state of New Jersey. It's based on actual spending. And you can see for a district that provides K-12 instruction for 3,500 students and greater, which is our category, Monroe spends $1,451 per pupil. The state average for that same category is $1,626, and the state median, $1,690. Next slide, please. This is actual spending per pupil, called per pupil costs, also from the 2020 Taxpayer Guide to Educational Spending. And it illustrates that Monroe's cost per pupil for the most recent reporting of 2020 is $14,996 per pupil. The state median is $15,756 per pupil, and the state average $15,904. Next slide, please. How do we keep costs down? We engage in a plethora of shared service agreements that are listed or will be listed in the user-friendly budget that will be posted after the budget's adopted tonight. But just to go through these, we apply for commodities from the USDA. No cost government commodities. All it requires is an application to be prepared by administration and adopted by the board each year. That saves us $110,000 in food costs. Many other districts don't bother with this because it's such a chore, but that's why our food prices in the cafeteria are the lowest in the county. Technology services, we have interlocal service agreements with the municipality for the 911 Motorola radio system. E-rate is where all purchases for technology are taxed and districts can apply for E-rate funding, and we receive about $125,000 from those funds. Interlocal service agreement with the municipality to share TV hosting, $55,000. Professional staff development, which benefits both districts, Monroe and our sending district, Jamesburg, $8,000 we save through that process. Solar energy renewal projects called SREC, Solar Renewable Energy Credits. We receive about $30,000 a year from selling energy back to the electricity company for the solar panels that are on top of Oak Tree School. And use of building fees, we have $100,000 budgeted there as per board policy. Next, purchasing, cooperative purchasing saves about $350,000 a year. Since joining Ed Data through the Middlesex Regional Ed Service Commission, we've saved over $4 million in what is considered supply costs throughout the districts. We bring in about $15,000 recycling everything that we can. transportation services and jointures, $275,000. Interlocal agreements with the fire department, where they now have eliminated a above ground diesel tank and use ours instead. And they pay us an administrative fee of $1,200 a year for that. And you can see the insurance savings from participating in consortiums for insurance for workers' comp, for property and casualty. And that's big savings there compared to the industry standard NJ crib rates. Next slide, please. So what factors influence the tax rate, which is where this presentation is going to conclude? Certainly, it's the amount of state aid that a district receives. The urban districts that receive the lion's share of state aid have a very low tax consequence to their community. And the opposite, unfortunately, is true here in Monroe. Fund balance, as I mentioned, is an area that can be manipulated by administration by efficient procurement methods and jointures and managing the budget. Ratables is the key factor in determining the tax rate for many years. And for 21-22, Monroe is blessed or cursed, depending on how you look at it, with a $244 million or 3.1% increase in the ratable base. The more people that share in the ratable base, the lower the individual rate. And you can see last year's increase there. And increased student enrollment certainly has an effect on spending, which does lead into how many appropriations are in the budget and going to cap and those type of considerations. So from the very comprehensive budget here, and I hope everybody appreciates it as such, every department in this budget has exactly what they need based on the defense rounds. All of the district goals and the board goals are being met. The board's budget philosophy has been satisfied. And thanks in large part because of the additional state aid and because of the increase in ratables. For 2021-22, there is a 1.6 cent decrease in the school tax rate, which is a decrease of $52.51 for an average assessed home with a value of $320,410. That average assessed home value was provided by the municipality. And again, that's the assessed home value, not market value. So if your home is worth $640,000, you will receive a $105 decrease. But it is very unusual for a district with the demands that we have placed upon us to have this kind of consequence. And I would like to thank Dr. Alvick, Dr. Lehman, Mrs. Ruella, all of the principals, all of the teaching staff, and the business office staff, especially Mrs. Laura Allen, for all of their contributions to this budget. This is the perfect example of what a group project is, and this is one that, in my opinion, will serve this community beautifully for the 21-22 school year. So at this time, I would like to read the resolution for the adoption of the 21-22 final budget. We need a first and a second. Then we will open it up for board discussion. And then we will have a public hearing on the budget. And then once this board has had an opportunity to hear public comments on the budget, only then will they vote on its passage. So at this time, I hereby recommend to the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education that the 2021-2022 general fund budget be adopted in the amount of $129,729,771 and a general fund tax levy in the amount of $110,223,519 and a special revenue fund in the amount of $1,296,687 and a debt service budget in the amount of $10,289,968 and a debt service local tax levy in the amount of $10,092,104, whereby the 21-22 budget totals $141,316,426. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has been notified of state aid amounts, and whereas such state aid amounts are for the 21-22 year, categorical special education aid is $5,017,004, and for the 21-22 categorical security aid is $103,764. And for the 21-22 categorical transportation aid is $2,753,019. And for the 21-22, the debt service aid is $197,863. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has estimated a state aid amount pursuant to application, and for the 21-22, the estimated extraordinary aid amount is $397,484. And whereby Board Policy 6471 and NJAC 6A 23A-7.3 provides that the Board of Education shall establish in the annual school budget a maximum expenditure amount that may be allotted for travel and expense reimbursement for the 21-22 school year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education hereby establishes the school district travel maximum for the 21-22 school year at the sum of $158,422. And be it further resolved that the school business administrator shall track and record these costs to ensure the maximum amount is not exceeded. And be it further resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education authorizes the transfer of $500,000 from the General Fund iPad Reserve Fund balance / iPad Insurance Fund to provide revenues for the anticipated refresh of high school instructional devices. And be it further resolved that members of the Monroe Township Board of Education authorize and approve a withdrawal from capital reserve account in the amount of $550,000 to fund 12 construction services, account number 12-000-400-450 for the partial roof replacement of the Monroe Township Middle School 1997 wing, including ancillary support roof structures, for which an amendment to the district's long-range facility plan will be submitted and a project number will be applied for. Whereas due to the consistent student enrollment growth, facility needs, and other priorities set forth in the board's budget philosophy resolution, the board is budgeting to maximum spending authority. Now therefore, let it be resolved that the superintendent of schools and the business administrative board secretary file the requested documents with the executive county superintendent of schools. Need a first and second, and then open it up to board discussion.
Motion.
I believe that was Mr. Chiarella
Second.
and seconded by Mr. Tufano, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, do any board questions, comments, discussion, deliberation? Mr. Pelori. Okay, please unmute. Are you muted, Mr. Pelori? There we go. Still can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. Trying to save the battery by taking the headset off. Mr. Gorski, Dr. Alwick and Dr. Lehman, excellent job. Thank you very much. I do have only minor questions, not to mention that the resolution is the longest resolution I ever heard in a public setting. You said that we received a $500,000 grant for COVID. And if I recall correctly, there's going to be a savings of $125,000 after we place the plastic separators in the classrooms. If my memory serves me correctly, I have seen pictures that we were doing that already as a part of that, last year itself. So are we paying for some of those expenses from this fund, or is it a completely new? That's the question number one.
It is completely new. These are budgeted new items that were in the 21-22 budget that we were able to expedite the purchase of with the grant money now.
Thank you. And you have appropriated for billing usage about $100,000. And given the COVID and given the restrictions of social gatherings, We probably haven't seen anything in the last year, and probably moving forward for the next few months, at least the billing usage is going to be minimal, not minimal, actually, probably non-existent. So how do we account for that $100,000 income?
Keep in mind, this is for the 21-22 school year.
Understood.
And as Dr. Alvick will probably discuss, we are expecting a normalcy to resume in September. And hopefully that will include use of building. At least that's our anticipation and our projection in the budget.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Anyone else? I have a quick question, Mr. Gorski. I know you've gone over this many, many times. Can you just go over a little bit about bank cap and the fact that we no longer have bank cap, and in the past it has served us well. We've used it as reserve, correct? So the difference between bank cap, surplus, very briefly for the public.
Yes. Very briefly, there was a schedule earlier in the slides that showed the cap calculation, and that provides the maximum spending authority that the district can raise in terms of general fund taxes. Where the board has previously chosen to adopt the budget by going under that amount is not lost, but it is called bank cap, where it can be carried forward into future years. Unfortunately, last year, to get the budget to balance, we used all of the remaining bank cap and had none remaining to carry over to this year. The only way bank cap could be reestablished is if the board was to go again under the maximum spending authority, which is a real challenge to do because of all of the pent-up appropriations needed throughout the district.
And actually, we would not have even we would have actually been under our funds had we not received some of the grants and some additional state aid for special education. So there was almost no ability to even to go under our budgetary needs and have bank cap. Is that correct?
There was, in my opinion, there was no way to meet the board's budget philosophy by going under maximum spending authority. And had it not been for the additional $1.6 million of state aid that came this year, this board would be faced with very difficult cuts.
Okay. So unless does anyone else have a comment? Because I would like to thank the administration for this and the board members for their vigilance throughout this process, but also remind the public, as grateful as I am that we are having a decrease in taxes, we are really on the cusp of having some very big decisions to make going forward. And I want the public to be aware that as grateful as I am and the whole board is for this budget, we sort of have been saved by a few funds that we weren't prepared to get. So, and those funds will probably be diminished by next year. Hopefully we will get back to normalcy, but that means we won't be getting some grant funds and some state funds through the COVID relief packages. So grateful for now, but we have to be vigilant in the future. Okay. If no one else wants to comment, we'll open it to the public. This, for the public's sake, this is specifically on our budget, so we will not be speaking about anything else on the agenda at this time. Mr. Mazzola, do we have anyone in the wings that would like to speak?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
First up, we have Rob. Rob, I'm going to unmute your mic now. Go
Can you
ahead,
hear
Rob.
me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Prab, thank you for speaking. Go ahead. Your name and address.
Yeah. Thank you, President Michelle Arminio. This is Dr. Prakash Parab. I'm
Just give us your address, sir. Sorry. We all know where you live, but
I'm going to do that. 33 Dana Drive, Monroe Township.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Golsky, for a good presentation. Second time I'm hearing, but you are consistent. It's very good. Nice to see we are receiving $550,000 in grants. That is very helpful. Nice to see that for the capital improvements, we have put aside $1.3 million. That is great. And we have 22 new positions, which will cost us 1.4 million. You can explain what those positions are very briefly later on. And President Biden has passed American Care Act, sending a lot of money to New Jersey. Hope we'll tap into it. If they are not providing, the legislations are not providing, let us know. We in public, along with BOE, will lobby for the legislatures to make sure that Monroe is not left behind. And President Biden is going to have an infrastructure, $2 trillion he's proposing. There is a lot of aid to the school support. Infrastructure also includes education. So hope we will receive money towards that. I have received a letter from New Jersey Department of Education, with the support of Senator Greenstein and Assemblywoman regarding why we are not receiving equalization aid. Mr. President, I'm speaking about equalization aid, which was discussed in the budget. So it is pertinent.
Okay.
And,
it is pertinent.
Yeah, and Mr. Gorski was kind enough to give me some advice and input on how the budget is, how the equalization aid. I'm reviewing the letter provided with some examples. And if it is, I had to go through it. If allowed, I will provide it to BOE and Mr. Gorski. Okay. So
Yes, you're gonna send that to us, you say?
No, I'm going to review it and I will forward to you all. Hope I had to review it and see whether I can disclose that letter to the public.
Okay.
Definitely, I'm going to be. We as a public will fight together with BOE. Whatever the term is, good fight. And I'm also happy to see a big community is coming up, senior community on the Cranberry Riverside Road. So I think we will get more taxes, and that will support our schools too. That will be good. So, Mr. Gorski, if you have time, those 22 positions, very briefly, which instructions, like special education, science, can you give us some idea, please?
Yes. Monroe Township Middle School is budgeting for a language advantage program teacher. Monroe Township Middle School is budgeting for a social studies teacher, 6th grade. Monroe Township Middle School is budgeting for a math teacher, 6th grade. Monroe Township Middle School is budgeting for an accelerated math teacher. Monroe Township High School is budgeting for a business teacher. High School is budgeting for an industrial arts teacher. Oak Tree School is budgeting for a paraprofessional. Special Education is budgeting for a multiple disabilities teacher. Special Education is budgeting for a multiple disabilities paraprofessional to accompany the teacher. Special Education is budgeting for 2 resource/ICR teachers. Special Education is budgeting for 1 autism teacher. Special Education is budgeting for 1 autism paraprofessional to complement the teacher. Special Education is budgeting for 1 speech teacher. Special Education is budgeting for 1 occupational therapist. Special Education is budgeting for 1 English as a second language teacher. Monroe Township High School is budgeting for a guidance counselor. Special Education is budgeting for the child study team behavioral specialist. The Monroe Township High School is budgeting for a 10-month secretary. Special Education is now budgeting for a supervisor. That's a new addition from the tentative budget. And Transportation is budgeting for 2 paraprofessionals. That's 22 full-time positions.
Thank you very much. It's all across. Thank you very much. I'm done, President.
Thank you, Mr. Parab. Mr. Mazzola, next, please.
Madam Board President, next is Mr. Esso. Mr. Esso, I'm going to unmute you now.
Good evening, everybody. Tim Esso, 2 Allison Court, Monroe Township. I just have a question for Madam President for Mr. Gorski as well. He talked about $30,000 we make on the Oak Tree School for solar panels.
Yes, sir.
Have we explored, or are we exploring any other additional solar panels in any other schools? Because even though the SRECs are at an all-time low, we can generate hundreds of thousands of dollars off these school buildings. Obviously, all the roofs are flat. $30,000 is mere peanuts compared to what we can be making. Have we explored any other options for solar in any other schools?
Mr. Esso, that is one of my favorite topics. I think we should always look into a solar, but that's personal. We have discussed that in the past. I understand, and certainly going forward with any new construction, I hope to have that consideration. But I've been told, and I'll have Mr. Gorski and either Dr. Alvick or Dr. Lehman discuss the cost to actually put it on the schools and the SRECs. I know the SRECs have, have gone down a great deal, but someone's
If I
talking.
may,
Go ahead.
Madam President, the SRECs have gone down. They are at all-time low. I guess my question is, are we leasing these panels or have we purchased a system? Because if we have the system leased, we're only getting power back to the grid, which in turn is reducing the electrical input of the schools. But if we have purchased it, we would be collecting the SRECs as well as working the power back to the grid. So that is my question to the board.
I'll let Mr. Gorski answer that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, the solar panels at Oak Tree School were procured and they are owned by the school district with the bond referendum bonds that were sold to build the school. They were included in the design approved by the Board of Education at that time. The Board of Education was also presented with an option when we finished the Monroe Township High School, approximately $8 million under budget, with a presentation from a company, and I know Mr. Tague spearheaded it, and I think it was a $1.8 million investment in a solar panel field that would have been at the high school location somewhere. The Board of Education at the time prioritized tax relief above the expansion of the solar initiative and returned the $8 million to taxpayers instead. Certainly, I agree with the speaker and with yourself that it would be a very good consideration. Schools should lead the way in green purchasing. And if the board comes to a project decision for a forthcoming referendum, you may want to consider that incorporation in some fashion.
Mr. Gorski,
Go ahead, Mr. Esso.
Mr. Gorski, can you furnish me that estimate, or I just say that proposal we received from that company from Mr. Tague?
I will. It was a number of years ago, Mr. Arminio. You may remember that too. I'll see if I could dig it up.
Okay. The other question is, have we paid for the costs of the solar on Oak Tree with the relief we have gotten from the SRECs? Has that project paid for itself yet? I know we had a few years window on that.
I believe if I'm going by memory now, we may be a year or two away from break even on that, and then it's all gravy after that. But don't hold me to that. That's just the best recollection I have.
And that $30,000, is that actually? It's just $30,000. Are we actually getting that back in SRECs?
Yes, it's a sale of a solar renewable energy credit, and we get that cash, and it's from an exchange that we sell them on.
Mr. Esso, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Would you like to continue?
No, that's fine. Thank you for answering those questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Mazzola.
Madam Board President, next we have Ms. Aziz. Ms. Aziz,
Yes.
I'm going to unmute you now.
Thank you. Mrs. Aziz, do you care to be on camera?
Okay, fine. I'll be on camera.
Mr. Mazzola, we failed to ask the other participants, but I know Mrs. Aziz likes to be on the camera.
No problem.
Hello, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sarah Aziz, 3 Lancelot Drive. Earlier, Mr. Gorski said that the total ESSER2 grant was about $520,000, and it seems like only $125,000 has been set aside for the purchase of plexiglass. What are the plans for the remaining $395,000? What is next on the priority list to use for that money?
Mr. Gorski, I think well, go ahead. You can answer that, please.
I'm gonna reach out to Dr. Lehman. I know he was involved with the oversight with Mrs. McConnell, our grant coordinator for the grant application, which is on the board agenda tonight to be approved. Dr. Lehman, do you have the specifics handy for the breakdown of that? I know there was 3 components: ESSER, there was a mental health portion, and a catch-up for lost learning provision, and we had some plans for that.
Yeah, I was just going to say $45,000 of it is required to be spent on mental health and support services. We have $29,594. That's required to be spent towards learning acceleration and remediation. And then the balance is $461,143. That's the broader grant. And that is where the allocation for the Plexi has already come out of. And a large chunk of that, approximately $192,000, is budgeted currently for compensatory education over the summer and into the fall next year for special education services. And that's the breakdown I have in front of me right now.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Lehman, have those been earmarked for specific things, or is that still in the design phase of what you're going to use the money for?
So, some of it is in the design phase. We have specific things related to compensatory education, and that is the majority of that, vast majority is staffing for the summer and projections for potential staffing in the fall. That is still actually the actuals are being worked out as families are being contacted regarding their compensatory services. Learning acceleration, we're going to exceed the $29,000 over the summer, as that is merely a drop in the bucket in terms of what we feel we should provide for the students over the summer. So we're going to use that towards a high school remediation piece, credit recovery piece, and then we're going to have some K-8 learning opportunities as well. All are being developed right now. We have meetings this week, and both in staff and with the township in terms of pulling the exact details for that together.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mazzola.
Yes, Madam Board President, next up is Ms. Saab. Saab, I'm going to unmute your mic.
And ask her if she'd like to be on video.
Ms. Saab, would you like to be on video?
No, thank you. It's Betty Sabarito, 2 Barrymore Drive. I just have a question. The new positions for special education that Mr. Gorski listed, these are new classrooms, correct? These are not replacements for anybody who's left or transferred or moving. These are actual new classrooms. Can somebody confirm that?
Mr. Gorski, would you like to, or would you like Dr. Alvik?
Ms. Sabarito's assumption is correct. They are new positions. They are all new full-time positions.
And does that mean there's a new classroom to be had? So
in most cases, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Thank you, Ms. Sabarito. I take it that's the end. Mr. Mazzola, anyone else, please?
I do not see any more hands up.
That's wonderful that all of our questions were answered. Seeing no more, Mr. Mazzola has, I think we're done there. Then I would just a show of hands, a motion to close the public portion. All in favor? Okay, we will close the public portion and move on to the superintendent's, assistant superintendent's report.
Budget adoption. To make a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to, we're so excited about the budget that I forgot we have to vote on it. Okay, Mr. Gorski, please, if you will.
Madam President, this is motion to adopt the 21-22 final budget as moved by Mr. Chiarella, as seconded by Mr. Tefano.
And you're really not going to read it all over again, are you?
If you wish, I'd be happy to.
No, not necessary. Ask Mr. Pelori. I think.
Please do. Please do.
No, go ahead. Roll call, please.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Ms. Spearman.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Pelori.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Ms. Siegel.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Mr. Tefano.
Yes.
And Madam Board President.
Yes.
And Mrs. Arminio, I want to thank the board for their confidence in the budget. And I especially want to thank Dr. Alvik, whose years in being a school principal and her experience in developing the budget and her very comprehensive understanding of all school practices has led to a very efficient budget that serves everyone's interest. And it was a pleasure supporting her through the process. Thank you.
And we had a unanimous vote to approve this budget, so I want to thank all the teachers, principals, and school staff who have helped to be very lean on this budget, but still give our children as best as they could in terms of educational instruction. And I would like to thank the administration for their part, and of course, all of our wonderful board members who have really debated and deliberated how this budget was going to look. So I thank you all, and I appreciate it. Okay. Now I think I can ask Dr. Lehman to please give his report.
Michelle?
Committee reports.
Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I have my thing circled and I was down to 10, but we are not. We are at committee reports number 8. I apologize. Keep me honest, guys. Ms. Skirby.
Yes, I have 2 committee reports.
Okay, go ahead.
First, we had our community engagement committee meeting last week. As a follow-up to the strategic planning meeting, I had invited Mr. Moraldo and Mr. Dowling to our meeting to talk about ideas that they had expressed during the strategic planning meeting and to collaborate with the committee. We also talked about the need for focusing on our advertising plan for this year, as that is also a $100,000 line item in the budget as a revenue source. And the committee has asked if the administration can move forward with that planning and look at, opportunities that we can cash in on for sponsorships, as well as advertising in the district. I know that it was said that there was a $100,000 line item in the budget for this year that we did not meet because planning had stopped due to COVID. But we do need to meet that budget line item, and I'm hoping that we get an update at the next committee meeting where we're moving forward with that. And then we had a policy committee meeting as well. There are 2 agendas tonight there's 2 policies on the agenda to be abolished. Those came from Strauss-Esme. They're consolidated policies. And then we also had a representative from New Jersey School Boards, Jean Harkness, come, and she did an HIB presentation, a pretty comprehensive one for the policy committee. Following her presentation and a lot of questions that the policy committee had asked and brought up, Ms. Arminio had asked if she could possibly do a board and a parent presentation training at one of our upcoming board meetings. She had said she needed to speak to our field rep about that, and I think we're waiting to hear back from them. I don't think we heard back yet from them, but I think that would be a great idea to allow the entire board, as well as our parents and students, to be reminded of the HIB law and exactly how that affects the students in our district. And that is my policy update.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, Ms. Belko.
Yes, first I want to thank everybody for agreeing to move the curriculum committee to a night other than the night of the Board of Education meeting. I think it worked out well. It gave us a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere for the items that we did discuss. So we did have the computer science and STEM education presentation by Mr. Moraldo and Mrs. Gasco, and they highlighted the 2020 computer science program and the design thinking standards. There was a lot of discussion about some of the concerns that were sent to the board in the beginning of this year about some of the things, and I think we had a lot of our questions answered. If you didn't see it, please go back and see the video, because it was a very good presentation. Dr. Roselle presented the collaborative process in developing the summer reading list and presented the summer reading list, which will be on for vote tonight as well. And then Dr. Lehman did a preview of some of the summer programming opportunities that the district is engaging in with Town Rec, summer camps, and some athletic and academic camps for the summer to help our students get ahead, catch up wherever we need to be, and it was a fruitful meeting. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Belko? And for that matter, Ms. Skirby, I forgot to invite any questions. Anyone, Mr. Rutsky, for
Michelle?
whom would you like to speak?
Actually, for you, but sort of for Ms. Skirby's policy meeting. So I wanted to thank you for, I think you forwarded it on the HIB presentation attachment. So thank you for doing that. I guess I was just wondering, because I think that is such an important topic for new board members to get familiar with. On the policy committee, obviously it's Ms. Skirby. Is Ms. Bierman and Ms. Belko also on the policy committee? Or I guess I'm
Yes.
trying to figure out that all
Yes.
three new board members got the training.
Yes.
Well, it was the reason why I invited her to come in to the policy committee meeting was because Ms. Belko and Ms. Bierman and myself attended her training through the new school board members training. And what I had learned at the training actually I thought was important to bring back to the board, because I felt like maybe there's more information that we should be looking at when we're discussing HIB. And I thought that a presentation to at least policy to look at, she reviewed our policy for us as well. But I thought that was a starting point to bring her in and do something for the policy committee. And then maybe also, like Michelle had said, bring her back to the broader board to do a training as well, because there was quite a bit of discussion there, and I think she really elaborated on some of the, a lot of the law that is, it's very vague and it's left to interpretation. So, it was a great discussion that we had. I know it's videotaped, I encourage everyone to look at that. But I hope they will bring somebody to a board meeting as well to do a presentation that the parents could also see, and possibly the students, because I think there's a lot of information that we should be sharing out there.
I agree. There's always a lot of gray in the HIB discussions. I think it's important, and it's always a process of learning and understanding. So I think it's great that you brought it there, and hopefully it does come out to the whole board and maybe even the public, but most importantly to the three new board members. So I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Yes.
And Ms. Skirby, if I may, it's always good to have a refresh, and I think we are mandated to refresh and actually review the HIB policy on a regular basis. Is that correct?
Yes, it's supposed to be yearly. Yes.
So that wouldn't hurt us, and it would also, Mr. Rutsky, go toward our board goals for board credit through New Jersey School Board.
Right. 2-year goal.
Yes, correct. Anyone else for either Ms. Belko or Ms. Skirby? Okay. Ms. Bierman, did you want to talk about?
Actually,
oh, I'm sorry. Mr.
I know
Rutsky.
I'm late again. It's just I realized that curriculum, Ms. Belko.
Yes.
So you went over the summer reading list, I believe.
Yes, we did.
Curriculum.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't see that as an attachment on tonight's agenda, and I didn't see it in the curriculum notes. Can we get a copy of the list?
I thought it went out to
It's
everyone.
in the curriculum minutes, and it's actually under board action in the superintendent's report.
It is? Okay, well then I apologize.
There's attachments for 6 through 8, K through 5, and 9 through 12.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't see that.
That's okay, sir.
Anyone else for those two? Ms. Bierman, would you care to talk about personnel?
Sure. Personnel Committee met on April 20th, 8 p.m. I chaired in Mr. Nicotinsky's absence, and I can share that we discussed the vacancy list.
Any questions? Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Stefano or Mr. Chiarella, you raised your hand?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. We had a Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, April 21st. It was a lengthy meeting, a lot of information, a lot of good information. I want to thank Mr. Gorski for putting this information together at the last minute. I made the request rather late, but he gave us a comprehensive rundown of everything we asked for. So the first thing that we had on the agenda was New Jersey School Insurance Group refund. And Mr. Gorski presented the Finance Committee with correspondence from the New Jersey School Insurance Group. And the district was given a partial refund of insurance due to COVID-19 for school year 2019-2020, and we've been informed that $21,894.86 of the refund of workers' compensation premiums and $219.35 for a refund for automobile liability insurance, totaling $20,114.21, will be refunded against the specific budgetary insurance accounts, which will help bring that down. As we just saw, we had the 21-22 final budget review, and as we discussed here, we discussed the award from ESSER2 grant for COVID-related preparedness, and that's going to allow us to get $125,000 worth of plastic desk shields. And I know that there were some comments made that we bought those prior, and why are we buying them again? But this is additional plastic desk shields, and with the increase in the student population, now that more students are returning, is going to enable us to shrink the distance and allow us to have more kids in class and maintain their safety. So I think it's a good thing. The other thing is, which I think is wonderful, was the addition of the position of for a supervisor for special education. So that grant will also help pay for that. And we need that position badly. So one of the other topics we had was we asked for legal fees broken down for the past year, and Mr. Gorski provided that to us, and with a lot of detail. We also discussed reopening funds from grants, specifically the Corona Relief Grant Fund for $220,147. And Mr. Gorski gave us an expenditure detail accounting of that. And then the last thing that we discussed was the transportation portion of the budget from last year, this year, and the impact from COVID. And we were able to review the printouts for the last 2 years and to study the impact from COVID-19. So I appreciate all that. We had a lot of great questions from the Finance Committee. And a lot of detailed questions related to the thought process, for instance, of looking at the legal fees from the perspective of how does that look when we're looking to hire either an in-house attorney or an outside firm. So I think there was a lot of good thought and conversation that went in. So thank you, everyone. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Chiarella? Mr. Rutsky?
Back again. Mr. Chiarella, and maybe for Mr. Gorski, I believe in the conversation about the transportation savings, it was brought up and negotiated with the county. I believe that there were savings of about 40% due to COVID and shorter routes and less gas, and 40% savings from the county. And yet, as I understand it, there was only a 10% discount afforded over to the Jamesburg contract. So I guess I'm wondering why those don't line up. Why a 30% differential? If Monroe saving 40%, why is Jamesburg only saving 10%? When we didn't send any kids to high school at all.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Gorski for this because the board never voted on that, either, whether 10% or 40%. That wasn't anything that was discussed at a Board of Ed meeting or a finance meeting. And so I'll let Mr. Gorski answer that.
Sure. Mr. Rutsky, as you stated, the Ed Service Commission last year gave, the statute gave an ability for districts to renegotiate some of the variable costs on those contracts because they required that the payroll and related benefits still be paid to the providers, but some of the variable expenses like fuel and tolls that were not consumed during that year could be renegotiated as a discount to the fee. we negotiated with the Ed Service Commission, and in certain contracts, they gave us off 30%. Others, they gave us up to 40%, depending on the contractor and their participation in the whole process. I received a call from the Jamesburg School Business Administrator, and in working with Kathy McDonald, we provided the BA with some of the fuel costs and estimates for tolls that would have been attributable to the specific Jamesburg routes, and it came to approximately 10%, and that's what we had agreed to. We both found it satisfactory. So, in accordance with my authority as school business administrator, I reduced the Jamesburg tuition contract by 10% to allow for those variable costs.
And I respect and I understand that that's your decision, your negotiation with the Jamesburg BA, who happened to be an interim BA and maybe just wasn't as connected to the job and the responsibility as maybe he should have been. And he was happy with 10%. I guess I'm just trying to figure out why it was just even a variable, why one thing didn't automatically lead to another that matched. I'm just trying to figure out why the differential, other than the fact that you were a better negotiator with the county and the Jamesburg interim BA was not as good a negotiator with you. I mean, is that even a fair assessment? He took 10% and said, thank you.
I would say that it was more driven by the cost estimates, which rounded to 10%. Certainly, if the position was to go higher, we would ask for more evidence from Mrs. McDonald and probably compromised a little higher. But
so I guess my question to you is, did you see that as a fair number? And in good conscience, you thought that was fair, and you believe it's still fair?
I could have just assigned the same amount that we got from the Ed Service Commission. However, I did recognize that there were some differences in the variable cost. That's why I brought Mrs. McDonald in. But
responsibly, we just go up the street. I mean, you're right. The cost of busing Jamesburg right up Prineville Road is in fact different than shuttling all over the 40 miles or whatever Monroe is. So I do get that, and that's why I'm just double checking that you thought it was fair.
I did think it was fair based upon what I looked at with Mrs. McDonald. I ran it by another administrator who felt it was actually a little generous based on the actual cost that we've got from Mrs. McDonald. But like anything else, the state allowed a negotiation in the process, and I do see your point. In retrospect, it would have been easier just to assign the same percentage or average of 35%, considering the difference between 30 and 40 to the school district. But I would have felt a little uncomfortable because I wouldn't have had anything to back it up. So that's, I certainly didn't mean to take advantage of the circumstance.
That's what happens when you have an interim BA or an interim anything. They're not nearly as committed and connected as a full-time employee is. So it's okay. I just wanted to clarify, just for my notes. Thank you.
Ms. Skirby?
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of confused why that never came before the board, before the finance committee. I mean, that would have been a discussion of the board if there was, whether or not, shouldn't that have been a board decision, whether they felt that that was fair or not?
Madam President?
Go ahead.
My position by statutory authority, and Mr. Gagliardi, correct me if I'm wrong, allows me to negotiate contracts with vendors quite often where the service is not up to speed. I don't just pay what was contracted by the board. I will negotiate discounts. Most prominently in Mr. Tague's area of construction, where something is held back or something's not finished or something wasn't done properly or something's being substituted with another vendor. We frequently negotiate contracts to the district's advantage. Here, it did not require committee or board disclosure. It's just a normal practice of my job. It was discussed at the finance committee meeting, although it wasn't an agenda item. And I was happy to discuss it again with the Board of Education. I already wrote about it previously in a weekly confidential. And I hope that answers the question.
Mr. Gagliardi, would you like to weigh in on that one?
Legally, as far as Mr. Gorski's description of his authority, I agree that it's correct. There's no legal issue as to the procedure. That's really up to the board in terms of whether something like this needs to come before the committee or not. Certainly, Mr. Gorski is not empowered to reach an agreement. He can negotiate. It's always subject to board approval. Whether you exercise that approval through a committee or through the board acting tonight is really up to the president and the board. But his description of his authority is correct. I will only underscore it is subject to final approval by the board.
Okay, thank you.
Did we ever have final approval, Madam President?
I think that's what that's this.
Well, we were, it was just brought to our attention and we discussed it in finance. So, yes, we are talking about it now. So I guess we would be approving it just in discussion. There's no formal resolution on it, but this was Mr.
Right.
Chiarella's report.
And this isn't a budget conversation. This is just a report from finance, and we requested that information because we never had that information before us. So although I just heard that it was discussed in finance, I'm wondering if it was discussed when Mr. Rutsky was the chair, because it hasn't been discussed, for this year when I've been the chair.
Yeah, I don't think we had this specific detailed discussion last year. I can't remember.
I don't remember it. It was a surprise to me from last year. Mr. Polari, did you have your hand up?
I had one other question, Michelle, but I can wait.
Yeah, please. Go ahead, Mr. Polari.
No, I just want to, Madam President, I just want to give a clarification to Mr. Chiarella's statement that, if you already spent it, why are we spending it? That's not what my point was. My point was, I recall we discussing it last year about placing the plastic separators for kids. And my question was, are we using this funding to pay for that, or are we using new ones? I guess the response was we were using it for the newer ones. So, Mr. Gorski, I think it gives a lot of comfort to the parents and some of the folks who are probably listening into the meeting. If you could just expand on that and say, if I recall correctly, last year, we were only doing that to the front benches or only and not to all of it. Now, are we doing it extending throughout the classrooms?
Lori,
Yes,
this
Mr.
is
Gorski.
thank you, Mr. Arminio. This is a broad deployment through the classrooms. Initially, it was district-wide, and I'll give you an example of how comfortable and effective these plastic shields are. We set up one of the conference rooms in the central office with these shields, and it allowed for us to conduct in-person interviews for certain positions that are open in the district. Both the participants and the administrators conducting the interviews felt perfectly fine because you have a barrier at the table that's going above your head, preventing anything from coming through. So in a classroom setting, this would allow for more students in the classroom, as Mr. Chiarella said, but specifically, it's a broad deployment in the classrooms.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Skirby, is it relevant to our current discussion? And
Yes, it's actually about the plastic shields. I just wanted
Okay,
to
quickly.
understand. I know we replaced several of them, correct? How much money did we utilize on the ones that we had to replace? How many did we replace? And how many are we currently purchasing new? And will that be enough in September if we open up 100% and all the students come back?
Mr. Gorski, are we actually replacing anything?
No, it's not a replacement. It's a supplement to what we purchased previously. We're not throwing anything out. Is it satisfactory? I think based on our current reopening projections for September, it's satisfactory. We can always make adjustments if more are needed. And although this is a lot of purchased plastic, there are alternate uses for these shields post the epidemic. The Industrial Arts Department has some really good ideas on how to use these things.
We're not replacing any. I heard that we were replacing some. Teachers were able to ask for replacements for ones that students couldn't see through. Is that that did not happen?
There
Ms.
was a
Arminio?
delivery.
Ms. Arminio?
Go ahead, yes. Yes.
So when we were purchasing the next round, when we were getting ready to open for 5 days a week, we needed to purchase a large number of these dividers. We purchased them from a company when they came in from the company, they were not clear to our expectation of what they needed to be. So we then immediately found 2 other companies where we were able to get the supply that we needed for that opening, that 5-day-a-week opening. However, we did not get enough of them for Monday. So there were some that were deployed that were not as clear, but just in the meantime, just until we got the full round. The ones that were not clear are being returned to the company. We are not keeping those.
And we're going to get a refund for those?
Yes, we will get a refund for those.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Okay, I think we have one more committee, Mr. Tufano.
Michelle, I'm going to skip the committee report because we kind of had a to be continued committee meeting.
Okay.
So we're going to just add it on to next week's. I mean, in 2 weeks.
That's appreciated. Thank you. Anyone else before we move on?
Arminio.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio, can I just ask a quick, I know
Please.
BG&T, you're going to save it, Peter, for next week, but can you just give us a little highlight as to what was discussed? Because there was an agenda, just to have an idea of what was discussed in the meeting.
Yeah,
A little bit.
we had 4 items on the agenda and we were only able to get to 2 because the first one took a little bit more time than we expected. I can tell you what happened during that meeting if you want briefly.
Well, if you'll just tell us what the subject of the
Yeah,
meeting
we had a committee meeting with SSP architects who were responsible for building the Claremont School. And on the second part of the second item on the agenda, we had a temperature scanners for schools discussion. The third item on the agenda was the Oak Tree School baseball field electrical upgrades, and the fourth was the hypochlorous acid cleaning agent review. Those last 2 we weren't able to get to because the first one took a long period of time. So in the next BG&T meeting, I'll be reporting on all the details of all 4 of those.
Okay. All right. Then what we have is the public forum. Am I correct finally? Am I in sync now? I turned the page too fast before. Okay, Mr. Mazzola, can we open the public forum, please?
Yes, as of right now, nobody has their hand up. Hold on. I have Mr. Esso.
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Esso, I'm going to unmute your mic. Mr. Esso, would you like your camera on?
No, no camera, thank you. Tim Esso, 2 Allison Court, Monroe. Are we talking about agenda items right now?
Yes, sir, we are. Yes.
Okay. I saw tonight on the agenda the contract for the same auditor. I just want to bring up that there have been many questions raised over the last several years about why the district continues to use the same auditor year after year. After all the questions and concerns voiced by the public, okay, in an effort for full transparency, it's something that we need on every level in our town as well as in the schools. I hope this board will vote no tonight and hire a new auditor. Okay, no to the contract of the old auditor is what the public needs to hear. Thank you.
We'll take that under advisement. Next person, Mr. Mazzola.
Madam Board President, next up is Ms. Saab. I'm sorry, I forgot the last name. Ms. Saab,
Sabarito. Yes,
Sabarito. I'm going to
Sabarito.
unmute you now.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Betty Sabarito, 2 Barrymore Drive. I just wanted to talk a little bit. I always come up here and speak about inclusiveness, and it's usually with relation to special education. This actually isn't about special education. I listened to the curriculum committee meeting, and I wanted to point out that I think, once again, our board members, our staff, maybe need a little bit of a sensitivity training. During that meeting, Mr. Pelori said, and I quote, "There's a lot of interest, especially in the South Asian community, regarding STEM." And that just, it implies that those that are not of that community do not want to be held to higher academic standards. And I'm certain that probably wasn't your intention, but I think we really need to be very careful about the way we're presenting things and the way we're asking questions, especially when we're in public, because we're trying to unite here as a community. And I think we all have to do a better job of that. And I remember this also being said when there was an issue with transportation and the busing. So I really implore that maybe we do a sensitivity training for anybody that's being heard by the public. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzola, anyone else?
I believe we have, Madam Board President, we have Mr. Parab.
Kosh Parab, yes, thank you. Mr. Parab, Dr. Parab, would you care for the video?
No, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes, your name and address, please.
Prakash Parab, 33 Dana Drive. One request. I attended Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, and one request. It was a very good meeting, good brainstorming. I wish I could speak there. Lot of good input from the visitors and good questions. And I please continue that. Please don't talk about dismantling Applegarth historical building. We'll keep it because I want the school to be built behind it, but don't talk about it. What I request is that the historical building, we will get grants, historical grants, and restore it and properly and use it as an administrative building or give it to our township, what to do. I want voters to vote for this next referendum. So that is the request. Then the second one is very close to me about the curriculum, which is the backbone of our school, backbone of our children. And we care for everyone. I went to strategic. First of all, let me concentrate what I'm saying. I heard the computer science. Please note, STEM is important. STEM means we're not talking about STEM program. It's introduction of technology, science, math, and all. STEM, I'm not talking about STEM program. It is what the concept is, the future of our country. And we have to train all across from our special education to everyone. Everyone is capable if given a opportunity. It was a laundry list of the computer science programs which was provided. Cosmetically, it looks good. But Madam President, you asked a good question which hit right on the target, whether we have teachers and facilities to support it. And we received a very frank answer. We don't have teachers and facility to support it. So my request is, let us not have a laundry list. Let us focus very, very quantitatively, very nicely, what we can do. So we don't want to be, we have to be focused. Otherwise, we'll be jack of all, and no one will get trained. So that is, I was very disappointed with that. And if we don't have, we have so many people which can volunteer and teach also at a free cost. We can ask the community experts to teach. So that is my feeling. I think we have a good STEM program. We have things, but it is very spread, very thin. So my request is, please go back and present what is you all are capable, what you all can support to the curriculum committee again. Thank you very much. Any questions to me or discussion? I'm with my time available. Do it.
Dr. Alvick, did you, or Dr. Lehman? Dr. Lehman, that's your committee, right? So.
No, I appreciate his feedback. I think we are confident we have very highly qualified teachers. We certainly have teachers that can do many things, but we do recognize that more training, obviously, across the board is certainly something we should focus on, and we always aim to do that. We have our hat in the ring for several opportunities to expand training for our teachers, grant opportunities. Computer science specifically is an opportunity that Rutgers is putting a grant out for, and we hope to be able to share some information about getting our teachers some training and developing cohorts with other districts to support each other professional development wise. So no, that's something we certainly are working on. It's something computer science and STEM is something that's right on the front of our attention, but it's also balancing with, especially at the elementary level, of the math and science and language arts. So
my comment is please teach coding at middle school, whichever language you select. That is the basic give opportunity to students. But I heard the facilities is a problem, and teachers is a, go back and look at the video if I'm wrong. And Madam President, you asked a very good question and came out. So you all are doing the best. I want to do it greater, and let us do it focused. That's my request, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Prob. We're out of time on that one. And I think that is a double focus. We have to provide all of that instruction, but we have to be realistic about our facilities needs. And Mr. Tufano was trying very hard to bring that to the fore. So we'll hear about that in a couple weeks. And, again, we have three things. We have the needs of our students, the facilities, and of course our budgetary issues. So we're going to be working on those simultaneously. Mr. Mazzola, anyone else?
Yes, Madam Board President, we have Ms. Aziz. Ms. Aziz, would you like your camera on?
Hi, my name is Sarah Aziz, 3 Lancelot Drive. I'm a CPA and former auditor, and from experience, I can tell you that it's very time-consuming and costly to audit a first-time client. I know that publicly traded companies are required to change their lead auditor every 5 years. I don't believe that boards of education are subject to that same legal requirement. I think it costs around $50,000 to get our Board of Education regular audit. And so my question is, if we were to switch auditors, how much more would the additional cost be? I'm guessing it would be the $60,000 or $70,000. And is it not true that last year we put out an RFP for a new auditing firm, and this was the lowest bid that we got? So my question is, what was the other bid? How many accounting firms specialize in this particular field of accounting that perform these types of audits?
I'll just answer that very quickly. Well, that was last year's board. I don't know how this year's board will vote. And certainly, sometimes best practices require that you change vendors on occasion. That would be, I think that would be where we're going.
I agree with you. My question is, would it save taxpayers money to switch to get a new auditor? I mean, what is the cost actually?
I don't know. Well, we would have to, if the board so chooses, we would have to try that again. It's up to the board. And we know what the costs are now, but I think we've to answer a previous participant's question, I think we've had this same auditor for more than 8 years at this time. I'm not sure. Mr. Gorski, did you want to briefly answer that question?
The only thing I will confirm is that we did go out for an RFP about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And there was only one responsive bid from the current auditing firm. The professional appointment is on the agenda tonight. I believe that does have a cost presentation in the contract. And,
okay.
It's in there.
Okay, thank you.
As far as anticipating what it would cost, it's impossible to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzola, next.
As of right now, there is nobody else with their hand up.
Okay, shall I have a show of hands to close the public portion? Anyone resisting that temptation? Okay. So next on our agenda is the Assistant Superintendent's report. But since Dr. Alvick, I gave you many Dr. Lehman, I gave you many opportunities. You didn't step up. Forget it. No. Just kidding. Little levity. You are finally next, and I apologize for all those false starts.
I'm ready whenever you need me to be. So I'm ready now.
Go right ahead.
So I just wanted to start by thanking the student board reports. They highlighted a tremendous amount of activity We are doing as many things as we can to be as quote unquote normal as we can. And I'll continue to highlight a few things like I do every month of what our students are doing, our staff are doing. Again, I can't thank the staff enough, all of our staff, the tech staff, the teaching staff, all of our support staff, our administrative team, Board of Education, for all the support you give us. The light is at the end of the tunnel. I feel it. It's coming. We will move on from this. But until then, I just wanted to highlight at the high school, we have the Monroe Township High School school newspaper. So what they do is they have articles that include coverage of national current events, happenings in pop culture, and exclusive stories of school news, including senior spotlights, which focus on individual achievements of some of the 12th graders. You can find the high school school newspaper at falconersvoice.com. falconersvoice.com. And that's where our Monroe Township High School school newspaper. There's some rotating articles and things. It's a great site to visit, and students are doing an outstanding job keeping that up to date. Another highlight, this is Key Club related. Our Key Club recently virtually attended the district 75th annual district educational conference. It's called the DCON, where Key Clubs and board members were recognized for their outstanding service and dedication throughout the entire service year. Many of our Key Club members were recognized from the high school. One of our students right now is the outgoing Lieutenant Governor of Division 11 for the New Jersey District Key Club International. He was awarded the Outstanding Lieutenant Governor Award, the Barry H. Werfel Outstanding Board Member Award, and the Robert F. Lucas Outstanding Lieutenant Governor Award. So highly accoladed leader of one of our Key Club students was. His sibling was elected the Lieutenant Governor of Division 8 from the New Jersey District of the Key Club International for next school year, 2021-2022. Congratulations to him. We also have several other students that won positions for the district board for the 2021-2022 school year. And that includes another Lieutenant Governor of Division 19, a district treasurer, a district editor. And there's just a list of awards. The Key Club just had an outstanding year this year. So congratulations to the Key Club. Awesome job on the newspaper. And I just want to keep my report kind of short tonight because I know we have a busy agenda. But thank you to all the students, and keep up the good work. We'll get through the end of June, and we'll enjoy the end of year activities. We have lots of great things planned. The governor kind of changed some of the guidance today, which will help us with those activities. We look forward to wrapping up this year and preparing for next year.
Any questions for Dr. Lehman?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Chiarella.
Thank you, Dr. Lehman. I appreciate it, and congratulations to the students. I think that's wonderful, and thank you for that report. I really appreciate it.
Anyone else? Dr. Lehman, I thank you very much for your patience and your report. Would you care to, Dr. Alvick, would you care to go next?
Yes, I will most certainly go next. Mr. Mazzola, can you allow me to share my screen, please? Thank you. So the District Restart Committee met on March 26th and April 23rd. So I would like to take a few minutes to give the Board of Ed and the community an update on those meetings. So. Okay. All right. So we have an extensive restart committee. So these are committee members that have attended the meetings. Also at each school, there are restart planning committees. All of the committees have met 4 or 5 or 6 times throughout the school year to look at school-specific parts of the plan. So those are all of our committees. There are many factors that we consider, and I've brought these up multiple times throughout the year that we're always looking at. The CDC and the Department of Health and the Department of Education guidance. So when the CDC comes out with new guidance, we cannot act on that guidance until it goes through the Department of Health, the County Department of Health, and the Department of Education. And then we get the guidance from them, and then we change it. Another big piece that we are constantly monitoring is the Cali rating for our county. We are still in orange. I've talked about that before. We look at all of our PPE and we're constantly monitoring our inventory. We considered our HVAC systems, and that's where we changed to the MERV filters. Staffing, individual class sizes within our cohorts, and now we're combined cohorts, our transportation protocols, all of our cleaning protocols, our current on-site resources. We talked a little bit about that today with the plexiglass, with the dividers, and resources to accommodate our additional students, specifically the cost and acquisition time for the April expansion, which we successfully did. So this was the March meeting. Utilization of grant funds to acquire those additional resources. So during the March meeting, we had a discussion specifically about screening and temperature checks, and we did talk about snack for elementary classes as we were looking to combine the cohorts and go 5 days a week for the mornings. But these are all of the safety protocols that we currently have in place. At the time of the March meeting, when we were talking about moving into the combined cohorts and combining cohorts, the guidance had changed to allow for the space between students, that social, the socially distancing spacing, to go down to 3 feet for elementary students. This is not the case for middle school and high school. Middle school and high school is still 6 feet because we are in the orange. Once we go down to yellow, that will change at the middle school and high school. So if there, but as a district, we were committed that if we were going less than 6 feet in any classroom, we were utilizing the dividers between students and staff to make sure that we were providing that extra mitigation for safety reasons. So we've actually measured the classrooms. Principals were in there with tape measures. Our nurses have been in there with tape measures to make sure that they're measuring the space between all of the desks and making sure that all of those supplies were available and ready to go for when we went to the 5 days a week last week. At the March meeting, we also discussed a change into the daily screening protocols. So one of the things that we found, and our nurses did collect data from the time that we went back to school in November. We were taking temperatures and we were screening every child, student and staff member had to complete a questionnaire on COVID symptoms. So from that time, we had not had anyone that could not enter the building based on a temperature check. The most of the time that was taken while the students were trying to come into the classroom, come into the school, was actually due to either forms that were not completed yet, or waiting for the forms to come back, or a question was marked yes, and it had to be followed up on. The majority of those were mistakes, but they were followed up on, every single one of them, before the student was allowed into the school and into the classroom. So at the meeting, we discussed change in that, and that would be that we would not have student parents or staff fill out the questionnaire every single morning. However, we would still send a reminder every day, and the parents have signed off in Genesis that they will check that list every day. But we are still doing temperature checks outside of the building every day for all students and staff. Our quarantine and isolation protocols are always under review. Again, this has to do with updated CDC guidance, which then turns into updated guidance from the Department of Health and the Department of Education. So we are still in orange, which then guides some of these requirements. Specifically, once we turn to yellow, we no longer have to quarantine contacts of potential cases. So there's a difference in quarantine and isolation protocols based on where we are with the Cali score. But right now, all of our quarantine and isolation protocols, the nurses have done a fantastic job of putting it together into a very clear and very detailed PowerPoint that is available on all of our school nurse websites, as well as the district website under the Restart Planning Committee. And it has been shared out with parents. So anytime that there's any changes, it is shared out through the updates, the COVID updates. One thing that we always remind everyone is, what does exposure mean? And we identify close contact, and this is the definition that we get. from the Department of Health, Department of Education. Close contact is defined as being within 6 feet of another person with or without a mask for at least 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. And physical barriers may mitigate exposure, but that doesn't stop the exposure. The nurses, when they look at contact tracing, they look back 48 hours from a positive test result or the symptoms in order to identify any close contacts. We've talked about this before because transportation we knew was going to be a challenge from the beginning. So we have given parents that opt-out ability from that they could drive their children to and from school. But masks are worn by all students, drivers, and aides at all times while they're on the bus. We open the windows to keep the airflow throughout the bus, and we seat students in one student per seat, but unless you're in the same family unit, and then you're able to share a seat. There are signs, and also our drivers have been trained to clean, and bus cleaning is happening between every routes. We've also, this is the bus cleaning protocol. In classrooms, again, we've worked with Dr. Lynch. We're having the students wipe down their desks at the conclusion of each class. Gloves and wipes are available in every classroom, and students and staff have viewed a training video that was Ms. Danielle Drust put together, but working with Dr. Lynch. Wellness and SEL, I talked more about this at the last board meeting and really talked about a lot of the things that we're doing for our students, and we are looking now at a reopening plan for the fall, because we do recognize that in the fall we're expecting the majority of our students to be back, if not all students to be back in the building. So we know that there are actually some students that had not been in the building all year. So we want to make sure that we're prepared for that as we move forward. So we are working now to develop protocols and practices and things that we can use for all of our students as we move into September. I know Mr. Gorski has spent a lot of time talking about the finance for all of the grants that we've received. And we've talked about the instructional models. So this is kind of where we get into what is the plan, what is the current plan, and what is the plan as we move forward. So phase 1 was the full remote model. That's where we were from last March through the beginning of November this year. Phase 2 was when we started in November for K-8 and in the beginning of December for the high school students. That was our half-day hybrid cohort model. That was the purple and gold model, where we made sure that students came in either 2 or 3 days a week, depending on last name. And that was to keep the cohort numbers small, and so that we can meet all of the requirements we needed to meet for distancing in the classrooms. This is just a sample schedule of what the purple and gold cohort models were utilizing. And then we moved to the half-day hybrid model. So right now, this is what we are currently in. All of our students are 5 days a week if they choose to be in person, or you still have the option, that virtual option, if you choose to do that at home. Students in kindergarten and pre-K attend 4 days in person. They have Wednesdays as virtual Wednesdays, and this is still to support our staff, and so that they can meet regularly on Wednesdays for collaborative planning, to talk about curriculum, to talk about students, to work together in order to plan their lessons and their units and assessments. The afternoons are utilized for small group instruction. They are, and the board has heard this because we've had students who shared this when we wanted to go to the mandatory afternoons at the middle and high school. They are used for office hours for our students who need the extra help. Our staff reaches out. It's also a time for at the elementary level where our teachers meet with small groups. This is also a time that we're looking at utilizing for the MAP assessment. So we've done that throughout the year with all of our students to make sure that the teachers can work in small groups in order to present that. And this is our current schedule right now. So all of our students, the in-person students, are in the AM face-to-face sessions, and they're completing all of their schedule at school. But in the afternoon, for both the fully virtual and the in-person students, it is online in the afternoons. We have virtual afternoons. The next phase that we would move to would be to move to a full day schedule for all of our students. So since the meeting in March to the meeting in April, I've worked very closely with our administrative team to take a look at what would be required for us to move to full days. We looked at lunches because we know that that's a challenge. It would require us to purchase additional dividers for lunch tables, probably to purchase more lunch tables so that we could spread them out throughout the school. It would require a change in schedules because we would have to realign when lunches were held for students, because we would have to spread lunches out through a larger part of the day in order to make sure that we were following all of the required distancing, which is 6 feet if you take a mask off. Even with barriers, you need to be 6 feet apart to take if you're eating and taking your mask off. With that said, and with also knowing that our students and our staff at the middle school and high school and parents had shared with us through surveys that they like the schedule the way it is at the middle school and the high school, and we're really hoping that we could continue to do that because they found that the afternoon schedule was very supportive for the students who needed it. And we also looked at just considering the number of transitions that we've had throughout the year. So my recommendation to the committee was that we would maintain the current schedule that we have through the end of June. That would take us, we only have about right around 40 days of school left. So it would be consistent for all of our students and our staff throughout the end of the school year. That would also give us time to focus on the MAP assessments for our students and scheduling those appropriately for all students. It would also give us time to focus on our end of year activities, and it would give us time to plan for September for all of the challenges. We could go and buy all of the supplies that we needed. One of the things that did come up at the meeting, someone had asked, well, wouldn't we need to buy them anyway for September? The answer is we don't know that yet because the guidance has changed. The guidance changed today with Governor Murphy's press conference today. So we don't know what we'll have to purchase for September, but it will give us time to plan for that. So after listening to the committee and many members of the committee who shared their thoughts, the majority of the committee agreed with that and agreed with staying and being consistent and keeping the current schedule through the end of the school year and focusing on the full days for all staff in the fall. So, and then phase 5 ultimately will be the regular in-person model. So again, this now at the April 23rd meeting, that was the recommendation. We talked about the consistency, the focus on September. We also spent some time at the middle school, high school, and upper elementary principals shared some of their plans for the end of year activities with regards to moving up ceremonies, the graduation, and the end of year activities. So for the high school is planning graduation at Cure Bank Arena for our entire senior class. Our students are excited. Our students want that. They want to be together with all of their students. Cure Bank is able to work with us and they will assign seats. Families will be sitting in pods and they're able to spread them out throughout the arena so that we can follow all of the guidelines that we need to follow. The 8th grade moving up ceremony, they're looking at 6 separate ceremonies indoors over 2 days, one for each team. And the reason for that is because of our limit to how many people we can have in one room. As of the time that we were planning and we had the meeting last week, it was 100 people, up to 150 people. It's now up to 250 people as of today. So they are working on those plans. There's an A and a B plan for it. Plan A would be the students would be in the gym, the parents would be in the pack. Plan B is we could all be together in the gym if the numbers increase enough that we're able to have 300 in our gym. So those are 2 of the activities. The junior prom currently is planned for outdoors in a tent on the high school, at the high school, and that's at the beginning of June. And again, we're following the numbers for that. And the senior prom is at the Grand Marquis. Is that correct? Yes. I'm getting confused because I have 2 weddings coming up, so I'm making sure my place is correct. So at the Grand Marquis, we have the entire venue for the evening of our senior prom, so we can spread students out to make sure that we're meeting all of the requirements for the gatherings there. And then 5th grade is now working on their moving up ceremonies. They didn't have a lot of details, but they were looking at dates and how they were going to be able to support all of the students through that. So there's a lot of planning going on right now for end of year activities. Individual principals will be sharing out specifics with the families that of those students. And then our plan is for our upcoming meetings to start talking about September and our plans for full day. The expectation for the fall is that all students will return to full in-person classes in September. That is according to Governor Murphy. He has stated that there may be an exception for any students that have a medical need and cannot return to the building. We have not received guidance on that yet. We're awaiting that, but as of right now, our plan is to return to full in-person classes in September.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Alvick.
So that's the update from the Restart Committee. I'm not sure if there's any questions on that.
Anybody have a quick question for Dr. Alvick? Go ahead, Ms. Bierman.
Do we have the numbers on the in-person versus remote population? And it's going for 1 or 2 weeks now. Are we seeing people dropping out or holding steady?
If the numbers are holding steady, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'll be happy to share them with you tomorrow.
And I think you were going to give us another number, Dr. Alvick.
I'm not done with my report yet. I have that one.
I'm sorry.
Yep. This was just the restart part.
Okay.
But the what was shared out with all of the families and the board originally, the numbers, that's pretty much what we're seeing in our schools. So it really hasn't changed. We haven't seen a huge change. We've actually seen a few more wanting to come back. And so what the principals are doing is really looking carefully at that to see if we're able to.
Madam President, if I may, Dr. Alvick, I think you're doing a tremendous job in a very uncharted territory in terms of things changing on a constant basis. And I know that our residents have certain expectations on where things are going, how things are going. And I think, you putting out a presentation like this would really clarify some of these things, because I'm already getting questions about what's going to happen in September. I think your presentation clarifies that. One of the questions that I have is that I got, and I directed them back to you guys, is the fact that somebody who might have opted either to be in person or remote, once they make the selection, they really don't know, if they don't recall, or if somebody else wants to check on them, they can't go back and recheck that. Is there a way that we can provide them with that kind of information to see whether they check the right box or by mistake they check the wrong box? The complaint that was that as soon as you check something, it just goes off, and there's no way for us to check to see what we checked. And the second question is very quick: is digital divide grant? I know that the state has put out some grants for digital divide, but I know that we have met the requirements. But were we able to use any grants from the state to meet the gap between what we were able to get versus whatever the gap was? I know. Well, I'm going to stop there. You know what my question is.
Yeah, we have every one of our students has access to a device. We have not provided a device because we are not a one-to-one district, but we have not provided a device for every student, but every student has a device. And then even to the point where we had asked families, how many devices do you have? And if they needed additional devices, we were able to supply those. So we have supplied all of our families with devices, specifically Chromebooks K-8. And obviously the high school has iPads, so we didn't have to do that. We've also part of the digital divide grant, we also purchased hotspots. So we have had some families that have been in need of that, and we've been able to supply that too. To answer your first question, if anyone has a question about their placement, they should reach out to their building principal, and they would definitely be able to answer them and help them there. All right, so I will continue. So with the COVID update, as I just mentioned, we are currently in Middlesex County at the orange level. We are always hoping that that goes down to yellow because that will require us to change some of our protocols. As of today, we have 77 staff members have tested positive. 249 students have tested positive. Currently quarantining, we have 10 staff members quarantining and 73 students quarantining. The district, in collaboration with MTEA, we offered vaccine appointments to staff at Central State Hospital for over 130 staff members. That was the reason we had the virtual day last Thursday, because we knew that those 130 people were getting their second shot last Wednesday. The district has also worked with Walgreens. I've been able to secure some vaccination appointments through Walgreens for some staff members who requested an appointment. And Pennsylvania Hospital in Plainsboro collaborated with the Middlesex County schools and were offering vaccine clinics within our schools. By the time that came to fruition, the majority of our staff members had already, who asked for a vaccination appointment, had already received it. So we did not host a vaccine appointment. However, for any of our staff members who were still in need, I was able to work with the staff at Pennsylvania Hospital to get them an appointment in a district close to home. So as of right now, I do not have any staff members who are requesting an appointment within the district. And that's where we are with the COVID update. So moving on to tonight's agenda, we have several staff members who have notified the district of their intent to retire. And so you will see them on this evening's agenda. So I would like to congratulate the following staff members. Mrs. Judy Firestein, special education teacher at Monroe Township Middle School, 38 years in our district. Ms. Kathy Listingy, school nurse at our high school, 19 years in our district. Cindy Hill, grade 4 teacher at Applegarth, 25 years. Fern Libros, secretary at Monroe Township Middle School, 25 years. Lori Ann Laley, secretary at Oak Tree School, 25 years. Mary Ann Morelli, purchasing coordinator at Central Office, 12.5 years. Mary Jo Giancola, Monroe Township Middle School speech and language specialist, 22 years. And James Simmons, maintenance mechanic, for 13 years. So I wish them all long, healthy, and happy retirements. We will recognize all of our district retirees at the June Board of Education meeting, as we do every year. So moving on to the agenda this evening, enrollment information as of March 31st is available on the agenda. As of today, we have 256 students attending the high school from Doonesbury. And moving on to personnel, we have quite a few personnel items on the agenda. I know that there was a question that came up today. There's a lot that happens within the district, and I know at last week's personnel committee meeting, we did talk about the personnel agenda as of that time, but there have been positions since then that have been posted and filled. So you'll see more items on the agenda this week. The board does have access to all of the resumes for all of the people that are listed on the agenda in your board docs, in your packet. So, Madam President, it is recommended that the board approve the attached personnel items A through AI.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ken?
Second.
Nancy Polari seconds it. Any discussion or questions for Dr. Alvick? Yes, Ms. Bierman.
I had a question on item I, the approval to assign staff for 2021, 2022. Is that a typical item that historically we would find year to year? Or is it seemed very broad, so as a new board member, I just wanted to understand it.
Yep, that is something that gets approved every year, but that is in board action items.
Yes, that's not on.
That's in board action items.
Okay.
That's not this.
But yes.
Mr. Tofano.
Dr. Alvick, did we explore having kids bring their own lunch to school, excluding things that are allergy sensitive children get sick with. Have we explored that where we don't have to have kids congregate in the lunchroom and they can sit at their desk and eat lunch at the same time every day and just till we get through this?
We have looked at that, and that would still require additional staff members that we would have to hire in order to cover all of the classrooms if we had students eating in the lunch in their classrooms. Because our teachers would have to also have lunch.
And what was the resolve? What did that, like, what would that cost the district to have that extra staff?
I can't even imagine what that would cost the district to have the extra staff. Plus, we usually don't even get a lot of applicants for lunch paras. I think we currently have a couple of openings for lunch paras that we haven't been able to fill.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Skirby.
I just wanted to make the comment that, as a member of the Personnel Committee, we really had a very short list on our agenda, and there is a very large amount of information in this personnel update. So I just want it noted that most of what's on here tonight, the committee did not review.
Thank you. Anyone else? I do have one question, Dr. Alvick, on the BCBAs. They are new positions. Are they the new positions that were contracted and negotiated on for the last board's a teacher's contract? And are we
Sorry,
just putting them in?
what letter is that?
Let's see. AG. You have two BCBAs.
Oh, those BCBAs are just to cover. We have a BCBA who's out. They are to cover the additional caseload.
But it says new positions.
I think it says new position, but they're really not a new position. It's just an additional. It's additional 17% of their contract. So it's actually covering another position.
Okay.
It's covering for someone who's out.
So that's a mistake. Could that be corrected on the minutes for next month?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Alvick.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Skirby?
Michelle, just one other question I have. Going forward on here, like under AG, there's a very long list of employees, and then AI. Is there a way that each one could be listed either with a number or a letter? In the event that a board member has to either recuse or abstain from voting on one of them without identifying the name, maybe just a number or a letter next to it.
I think even if you recused by a number or letter, it would still identify the person. So I think you can just name the person if you're recusing on a specific. I think that's what we've done in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the public has a right to know who we're hiring. We can't talk about them or evaluate them, but they should know who I guess I suppose. Anyone else? Okay, I guess we have a motion and a second, and so we need a roll call, please.
Yes, ma'am. Personnel items A through AI, moved by Mr. Chiarella, seconded by Mr. Peluri. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Peluri?
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky?
Yes.
Ms. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Ms. Arminio?
Yes.
Personnel items A through AI has passed.
Okay, moving on to board action. It's recommended that the board approve the following board action items A through L.
Motion? Anyone with a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Chiarella and Mr. Tefano, second. Okay, any discussion on that item?
Michelle,
Yes, Mr. Nicotinsky, please.
I actually would like to table I and
Table
discuss that
I.
in personnel.
I'll second it.
There's a request to table it and a second, so we have to vote on the table. So, Mr. Gorski, could you just tell us what we're voting on, please?
Yes, this is a priority motion to table I, moved by Mr. Nicotinsky and seconded by Mr. Chiarella.
Correct. Roll call, please.
Ms. Delco. How do you vote on motion to table?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pelori,
I would vote no.
Mr. Brutsky,
I too will vote no. I see no reason to not approve that.
Ms. Siegel.
Madam President, sorry, maybe
No,
we need to
there's
go
a
through.
vote. There's a vote.
Yeah,
Mr.
let's go
Pelori.
through that.
Go ahead,
Siegel, how do you vote on motion to
Uh,
table?
no, no,
Ms. Kirby,
Yes.
Mr. Tufano,
Yes.
and Madam Board President.
Yes.
Motion to table I has passed.
Okay, so we have to vote for the remainder of the board action. Mr. Gorski, yes.
Yes. Are we ready for a roll call?
Anybody
Board
else?
action
Yes.
items A through L, with the exception of I.
Okay.
Can we have a
Ms. Belko.
discussion, please?
No.
I don't know if that discussion is appropriate now since there was already a motion on the table and it was seconded. Mr. Gagliardi, do you want to weigh in on that, just to be fair?
Yes, as chair, Madam President, you are free to permit a discussion, but only as to the motion on the table.
Okay. Is it to the motion on the table, Mr. Pelori?
Absolutely, it is. It is
Okay, so
about it is about the item I. Maybe I missed
that,
it.
That
No,
motion has
not the motion that has been tabled. Once it's tabled, there's no discussion. I mean, the motion that's pending before the board. Forgive me if I wasn't.
Okay, well, it's parliamentary procedure, so Mr. Gorski, I would imagine if there's no other question about what's currently going to be voted on, you can roll. Go ahead.
And board action items A through L, with the exception of I. Ms. Belko,
Yes.
Ms. Bierman,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
beg your pardon?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pelori,
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Ms. Siegel,
yes,
Ms. Skirby,
Yes.
Mr. Tufano,
Yes.
Madam President.
Yes.
Motion passes. Board action items A through L, with the exception of I.
Now, Madam President, with no motion pending, if you wanted to entertain further discussion with regard to the tabled item, that's up to you.
I would like to give it a few minutes. It's starting to get late, so how about we give it 5 minutes for discussions? The time is now 9:34. Mr. Pelori, did you want to say something?
All I want to say was that, this motion, that we were not approving would recommend that the superintendent of schools to reassign staff. I view that as handicapping a professional that is serving the school district at the highest authority. And I just didn't quite understand why that was being removed, maybe because I was not in one of the committees. But more importantly, I mean, the motion has passed, so I don't have any say in it. But I really would like to get an answer from Dr. Alvik if that's going to impede her capacity to run the school effectively.
Dr. Alvick, if you'd like to address that, you certainly may.
I'm not sure how that's going to affect my position right now.
Okay, it would seem to me that Mr. Gagliardi can correct me if I'm wrong, that the doctor has prerogative, Dr. Alvick has prerogative as a superintendent to make most of those changes, and it's been going like that, in the past. So I think what maybe some of us on the board are interested in is an understanding of exactly the range of the motion. So I think that can be discussed and brought back next month. Mr. Gagliardo, did you want to I don't know that you need to say anything. I saw Mr. Rutsky has his hand up.
I was just gonna say, I think it's gonna absolutely handicap Dr. Alvick as she sets up for September. I mean, there's work to be done over the summer. She adjusts teachers, she adjusts administration. She's the CEO of the district. This is her job. Micromanaging, as you know, I'm not a big fan of, is exactly what you guys just voted to do, is to micromanage the CEO of the district. I don't understand it. Maybe somebody will explain it, but as of now, I'm at a loss.
Okay,
You know, that doesn't happen often.
Ms. Belko, and then Ms. Rupa. Ms. Belko, go ahead.
I had to unmute, I'm sorry. We didn't totally vote it down. We asked to table it for discussion at the Personnel Committee, which is going to happen in less than a week and a half, because we have another meeting coming up in 2 weeks. I think the Personnel Committee just needs to understand what it is that that actual section gives the superintendent the authority to do. It is something that I don't understand. I thought maybe it would be something else. Not to belabor this discussion here, because the motion has already been made, it's already been passed, and the Personnel Committee will come back with its recommendation for next month, which is literally less than 2 weeks away. I don't think we're doing anything to micromanage the administration or to put Dr. Alvick in any untoward position. We just want to make sure we understand exactly what it is we're voting for, and that's what the people of the town have elected us to do. Thank you.
Rupa and then Mr. Nicotinsky, and I think we might be done with that discussion. Go ahead, Rupa.
So the only thing I want to say is, again, as superintendent of schools, it's her authority. It's the superintendent's authority to make sure that the schools are staffed, working alongside their principals. So I don't remember ever seeing this on a board agenda before in all the years. So I was very surprised to see this there, because in my purview, I understand the superintendent to be able to make those decisions and move the staff where they need to around the school to make sure our schools are effective. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, that was sort of my understanding as well. Mr. Nicotinsky. Have you?
Ms. Belko said it perfectly.
Okay. Anybody
we'll
else?
just discuss it in personnel. So
We'll move this along. Anybody else? Okay. Let's move on then to the next agenda item. Mr. Gorski.
Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through O be approved by consent roll call. I beg your pardon, Madam President, the agenda was changed today. It's now A through P.
So moved.
Second.
May I ask who moved and seconded the motion?
Ken moved it.
Peter and Paul.
Oh,
Mr. Redsky, second. Thank you.
And could you just briefly discuss P in case people from the public didn't see that on the agenda?
Yes. Item P, according to the Special Services Department, was they were looking for the board to approve the Stepping Stones group. At this time, the district is in need of a BCBA, Board Certified Behavioral Analyst. Our district BCBAs provide support for IEP students at every age and every grade level. BCBAs work collaboratively with staff in self-contained classes, special area classes, resource rooms, and general education settings. At this time, one district BCBA will be on leave. Another district BCBA position is vacant due to registration. There is only one BCBA in district at this time to cover the entire school district. While we await the return of the BCBA on leave, we can support our students and meet their needs by contracting a BCBA from Stepping Stones. That is with the help from Mrs. Marietta Ruella to explain it. So it's a contracted service for a BCBA on a temporary matter until staff returns.
Okay, so we had a first and a second, correct?
Yes.
I would just like to take my prerogative and ask about J, Coordinated Transportation Camden. Could you just explain? We had that taken off the agenda last month. We had some questions about whether that transportation service was started in September and continued until now.
Yes. The item pertains to the contracted transportation services between the board and the Camden Ed Service Commission, which is outside of, what we normally contract with, and it's for a very unusual reason. We have a child who,
That's okay, Mr. Gorski. You don't have to go through the private matter. I'm concerned about whether the actual transportation service has been performed since September. That's really the crux of this.
yes,
Right.
without getting any personal information, which I was not going to do.
No, I know you weren't.
The child's educational setting, as required to be paid by the school district from the state, was approved in September. The child has been attending school since September on a few days of full remote, but most of the days from September through April were 2 days a week. And since April, it's been 4 days a week. And to complement the educational services is a requirement for the district to provide transportation. And the most efficient way to do that was for Mrs. McDonald to contract with the Camden Ed Services Commission. The estimated annual cost of the transportation contract is $14,960. And there is no discount or adjustment to the bill if the child's only attending physically 2 days a week or 4 days a week. As long as the school's open, which it was full-time, that requires this transportation service.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question about this? I guess, Mr. Gorski, roll call.
Yes, ma'am. This is board action items A through P. Moved by Mr. Chiarella, second by Mr. Rutsky. Ms. Belko,
Yes to everything except A3.
accept, beg your pardon?
A3.
A3. So noted. Ms. Bierman,
No on A3, yes on all other items.
so noted. Mr. Chiarella,
Yes, except for A3.
noted. Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes to everything except A3.
where you vote?
What is your vote on A3?
No on A3.
Thank you. Mr. Pluri,
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Ms. Siegel,
Yes.
Ms. Skirby,
No on item A3 and yes to the rest.
Mr. Tufano,
Yes on all except for A3.
and Madam President.
A no on A3 and yes to the remainder. Thank you.
That concludes my report. Motion passes with the exception of A3. Madam President, I believe that was auditing services. Is there any additional resolution that you would like to put forth as to how to proceed in the absence of A3? Or otherwise the district will be continuing without auditing services as required by statute?
I think perhaps a resolution may be in order. Is there anyone who has a resolution to move forward? If not, I'll suggest that we vote on a resolution to go out for a bid for auditing services for the next year. We can clean up that language.
Madam President, may I suggest substitute the word request for proposal RFP and instead of bid, as auditing services are exempt from bidding?
Okay. So if you could just read that a resolution and we can have a vote on it.
Motion moved by Mrs. Arminio to engage in a request for proposal RFP for auditing services. We need a second.
I'll second it. Chris,
Any questions?
Yeah, Madam President,
Yes, Mr.
again,
Valori.
in terms of the timeline that you have to conduct the audits, Mike, for the school district, would this impede our deadlines and ability to get this information to the county, or it's not going to be an impact at all?
I can't answer that at this time. I have to take a look at it.
Okay. If there are no other questions, Mr. Gorski, you can have a roll call, please.
Ms. Belko,
Yes.
Ms. Bierman,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pelori,
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Ms. Siegel,
Yes.
Ms. Skirby,
Yes.
Mr. Tufano,
Yes.
Madam President.
Yes.
Motion to go out for RFP for auditing services has passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda seems to be my report. I'll try to do
Michelle?
this. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Before you go on, I just wanted to make notice on the last the business administrators vote. So I just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge the donations from PPG over to Oak Tree Elementary School for a 3D printer and some Chromebooks. Very generous. And then obviously for the Monroe Township Volunteer Fire Department for $500 over to Mill Lake. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that and say thank you.
Okay, and actually, Mr. Rutsky, you just shortened my report. For the same reason, I want to thank PPG. We have a donation from them and from the Monroe Township Fire Department company, the Volunteer Fire Department #1, and that was for $500. So again, we thank all our generous donors for the helping our students and going through things. So let me just be brief. Again, I had mentioned about the 2022 budget going forward, and we know we have been very lucky this time to get grants and funds that we had not generally received and that we will probably not receive in the near future. So again, as happy as we are to have a very good budget this year, and thanks again to the administration and the staff, we have to be cognizant going forward. We want to look at the big macro picture of our responsibilities for our students. So with that, we are hopefully entering a new era of cooperation between the Board of Education and the Township Council and the Mayor Delina. We are two separate governing entities. However, it is refreshing to have Mayor Delina reach out to all of the board members and has invited me as a member of the board to be on the Master Plan Stakeholders Committee. I think we are only tasked with making recommendations. We are not necessarily tasked with actually voting or putting forward, but we are tasked for collaborating with what's going to happen in the master plan. Now, the Township Council, Mayor, and the Planning Board are responsible and have the authority to make changes to the master plan, which is the development plan, again, of the future of Monroe. But the fact that we were very graciously invited is a very nice change, and we are going to be very vocal as to the needs of the Board of Education. Because while the Board of Education has the responsibility to facilitate housing for our students, we don't have the authority to curtail the construction. And we know, we talked about this again today, that we are very, very tight in our facility. So we're going to look forward to working with the municipality. Also, we have a shared services collaboration with the township. Again, the mayor and I have been speaking, and the mayor is going to consider the shared services agreements with the Board of Education to appropriate some funds to help us repair and replace some of our outdoor facilities. And this way, it not only helps our students, but it helps the entire community. It's a benefit to the full community, and we look forward once again to working with the mayor. And I think I'll stop with that. We are very grateful for our students' tolerance of this pandemic year and looking forward to getting them through graduation and all of the other things that they're probably enthusiastic to get over with this year. I thank you. I think that'll be enough for tonight. We've done a lot. So are there other Board of Education business? We do have to go into closed session, so I would ask everyone to be brief. Mr. Tufano.
Madam President?
Yes.
Mike Gorski speaking. May
Oh,
I
sorry.
just remind you that I believe you wanted to move a motion tonight for a limited design study for
Oh, you're right.
the topic you just talked about.
Okay, yep. And in the shared services arena, we have had an agreement between the municipality and the Board of Education, so I will read that for a vote. I hereby move that Monroe Township Board of Education approve the previously submitted collective
I beg
negotiation.
your pardon, Mrs. Arminio, that's the second one I sent.
Where's the
If
first?
you'd like, I'll read the first one. I have it handy.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. It is recommended by Board President Michelle Arminio that the Monroe Township Board of Education authorize and approve a limited design study to determine the project scope and a cost estimate for the replacement of the synthetic turf field, the surrounding track, and the stadium bleachers on the high school field. It is further recommended that administration make every effort to utilize the same professionals who originally designed and established a cost estimate for the original installation in an effort to minimize costs of the limited design study. Once the limited design study is complete, it is understood that the board president and business administrator will collaborate with the municipality to develop a formal shared service agreement whereby Mayor Delina has expressed a willingness to consider paying for the project cost.
And again, that is to benefit us all. Do I have a motion? Mr.
Madam President.
Motion.
Mr. Rutsky and Mr. Polari. We'll have any questions?
The only question is probably to our attorney is that I think in the motion you said that it should be the same contractor who installed it. Is that in any shape or form a violation of procurement laws?
Mr. Ploy, I believe the language before it goes to the attorney is that it's directed to administration to make every effort to use the same professionals.
Okay, fair enough.
These are professional service contracts that are exempt from bidding.
One of the reasons was so we wouldn't have to go out for an extensive design study if it
Completely
doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, if these are the people, I mean, my question to the administration was if these people installed the original turf field and track, why would we go to somebody else who might, increase the costs when these people already, now, if that doesn't work, we should, the administration certainly has permission to move forward on that. Yeah. Anyone else? Mr. Rutsky.
You're muted, Peter. I'm sorry, not Peter. Paul.
Cool. Mr. Rutsky, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Was on mute. We just voted on this exact quote on letter O on Mr. Gorski's report. We all just voted yes for it.
Oh, that's what I thought.
I beg your pardon. Was it incorporated into the report?
Yeah, letter O, like verbatim.
Yeah.
I thought the intent was to move it tonight with the discussion, but okay.
So I don't know if we need to vote again or not, but
I beg your pardon.
So it's taken care of, Mr. Gorski?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how about the other one that I was supposed to move?
That one is for after
closed
deliberates
session?
on the collective negotiation.
You know what? I apologize. Yep. Okay. Okay, can we go to new board business? Mr. Tufano.
Okay, I want to make a motion tonight, but first I want to explain why I want to make this motion. Last year, the board unanimously voted to have the state legislators into Monroe and have the Board of Ed and the public ask them some questions regarding fair funding, their fair funding formula, and why we keep getting left out of the equation. So that motion, like I said, passed unanimously, and Andy Polari and his committee worked really hard at arranging that, and I think we all agree that that was much needed. And then the board president at the time decided on his own, without any input from any of us, that he was going to kill that meeting. I think that meeting, we can agree, is definitely in order. I think we need some answers from them as to why we're being ignored at the level we're being ignored. And so tonight I'd like to make a motion tasking the board to re-invite state legislators to Monroe so that they can answer questions from the board and public in regards to fair funding.
We have is that a second, Mr. Polari? Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, any discussion? I don't think that needs discussion, but does anyone want to comment? Okay, let's have a vote.
Ms. Belko,
Oh, wait. Did someone want to comment? No. Okay, let's go.
Yes.
Belko, yes. Ms. Bierman,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Polari,
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Ms. Siegel,
Yes.
Ms. Skirby,
Yes.
Mr. Tufano,
Yes.
Madam President,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Rutsky.
Thank you.
And thank you for catching that, by the way, on O. It's getting late.
I just knew it all sounded very familiar. So,
And I even
somewhere before.
had notes on there. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say, before the meeting tonight, I attended the Whole Child Committee sponsored Eric LeGrand on a presentation about self-awareness, building confidence, and just dealing with adversity. And I thought it was really spectacularly done. What a great inspiration he is. Local Woodbridge guy, Rutgers guy, working very closely with Mikey Nichols from Monroe. So he really spoke very intimately, very personally about his situation, and it was very inspirational. I really enjoyed it. So I just wanted to say thank you to the Whole Child Committee for putting that on, and just say it was really a wonderful event. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Polari.
Madam
New
President, I'll
business?
try to keep it quick. One of the things, I don't know if Dr. Lehman, if you mentioned this, I'm going to stop. Monroe Township High School Environmental Action Club.
I did the pre event they held, but if you're going to speak about the post.
No, very quickly,
Yep.
some of the high school students actually engaged a whole bunch of kids from various walks of life and had 20 simultaneous parallel sessions on environment. And to see the kids who are probably in their early teens present about water preservation, global warming. I believe Dr. Alvik was also on a call on that. It was really excellent. I just commend the club for doing a fantastic job with that kind of information. More importantly, putting some of the kids to make a presentation. So they were presenting and answering questions. So that was excellent. Couple other points I have that I want to bring to your attention is the dual enrollment. I know I may be looking at some data that's dated from the New Jersey Department of Education website, but it shows that the dual enrollment in the state is 20.2% and Monroe is 0. And obviously I'm wearing my county college cap a little bit here, but that's a great benefit to our students if they can do dual enrollment, take care of some of the college credits up front when they're in the 11th and the 12th grades. So is there a reason why we're 0 and the state average is 20.2? And is there anything we could do to improve that?
Mr. Manu?
Go ahead, Dr.
So I don't know why we're 0 unless it's just a coding issue, but we do have currently 2 classes that our students can take at at Monroe Township High School that they earn credit at Middlesex County Community College. It also has to do with our certifications for our teachers and our curriculum. So we present our curriculum to Middlesex County College. It has to be approved by them, but our teachers have to hold the correct certification in order for the course to count also. We had more courses in the past, but we didn't have the certifications. That's something that we're actively seeking right now. It's going to be part of our strategic action plan to do more of those types of courses. The other thing we've been in contact with Middlesex County Colleges. They will actually hold classes at Monroe Township High School. If we have 20 students who are interested in a particular class, they will send a professor to our high school for after school. So we are looking at doing that also, and what we can provide to our students. They only charge $125 for a 3 or 4 credit class, so it's definitely something that students could take advantage of to earn college credits.
Yeah, not that I'm ignoring others, but I think economically challenged parents who want to get their kids through college, this is an excellent program that they can do some credits ahead of time. Last but not least is that, we're about 4 or 5 months into it now. Given the progress we're making towards next referendum, I at least would like to make a motion with all of your blessings to see if we can start moving towards coming up with a cost and a reasonable amount, which I think, those of you who serve on the buildings and grounds and transportation kind of have an idea. I think the magic number is somewhere around $80 to $85 million. Have our staff come up with a good plan and start working towards the referendum and create a timeline to get there. I've been talking about this for the last 2 or 3 meetings. I look at Peter for your support on this to see if we can somehow create a timeline on how we can achieve that before the end of the year. So
Andy, we are definitely working on that, but that takes a little bit more time than just a vote. We're getting numbers from the developer on building that new school. Hoping that will be closer to resolve next meeting. And believe me, nobody wants it as bad as I do. I've been saying that since I got on there. However, it takes time. We can't rush. We need an accurate number to give to the public, and we need to do it the right way so we don't scare off the public. We need to do it responsibly, and it's not something that can be rushed. It is definitely something that needs to be expedited. I agree with you, but we're working on it, believe me.
Peter, the point is very simple. What gets measured gets accounted for. So all I'm asking is not to give the number right now, but create a roadmap of, let's say in 6 months from now, we want to have a plan ready so that we can cut our professionals loose to come up with a plan. That's all I'm asking for at this point.
Well, do you have a motion? You want
Yeah,
to
actually, you
move?
know what? I would like to make a motion for whatever
go
it's worth.
ahead.
I would like to make a motion to request the Board of Education to engage our professional, our district staff to come up with a timeline on when and how we can implement a next referendum.
So you're just talking about a timeline for,
Correct.
do we have a second? Is there anyone that
A
seconds?
second.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the table. Does anyone want to have a discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to, I just heard I just heard him say that it's $80 to $85 million price tag on that. Is that part of this motion? Because I'm not ready to vote on a price
No,
tag.
Ken,
for any of it.
no. I probably pushed it a little further than I should have. I'm saying that the numbers that we were talking about on the building grounds and transportation the last couple of years with that number, we don't know the number. So all I'm saying is we develop the number. I'm not suggesting the number.
So we're talking merely about a timeline to put something in front of the public. Ms. Skirby.
Yeah, I believe the timeline is part of our board goals. I believe that was a board goal or a district goal to address the unhoused students and the need for a referendum. And we did vote on a limited design study to be completed. And, as a member of the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee, I can say I felt a little blindsided at our meeting because the group was brought in and we were kind of, I know I was surprised because they were looking for us to give them the specifications that we wanted as a board, where I felt that should have really been driven by the administration and, you know, our facilities director, we approved a limited design study to be completed. And I'm not sure why that is being dragged out, but that needs to take place immediately because that is something that we, as a board, did vote on moving forward. So, you know, I don't know why it's moving so slowly, but I agree with you, Mr. Fleury. We do need to have a you know, some type of a timeline when we're going to get this done, but it's not at the, you know, it's not at a lack of the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee from trying to move this forward.
I absolutely don't mean that, Ms. Kirby.
Anybody else? Any other comment? Okay, there is a motion on the table. So, Mr. Gorski, could you just read that so we're clear? Do you have a date certain? You said 6 months, Mr. Polari? Within 6 months of this, if the motion passes?
Yeah, Madam President, we cannot put a timeline either. They have to come up with a timeline. That's the motion.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Gorski, if you'll please. Unmute, sir.
Again, I hate when that happens. Mr. Pluri, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the motion moved by Mr. Pluri requests the Board of Ed to engage district staff to determine when and how to hold a bond referendum.
All right, let me redo that. I request the board to engage our district staff to come up with a timeline for a potential referendum for the district.
Okay. Request the Board of Education to engage district staff to create a timeline for a potential referendum.
Is that your motion? And who seconded that? And Rupert, is that what you?
It's me.
Okay. Is that what you agreed to on the second? Okay. So we have had the discussion. Shall we get a roll call, please?
Ms. Belko,
Yes.
Ms. Bierman,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pluri,
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Ms. Siegel,
Yes.
Ms. Skirby,
Yes.
Mr. Tofano,
Yes.
and Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Anyone else, or should we have to move to the public forum? Anyone else?
Mr.
Yes,
Arminio, I
Ms.
have
Yes, Siegel, go ahead.
one quick thing. I just want to thank Mr. Feldman and the technology department for all the hours they're spending on trying to fix the internet issues and the DDoS attacks and everything they're doing. I know we have little issues here and there and disruptions, but they're doing a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to thank them for all their time that they're spending working on this.
I think everyone can agree with that. Ms. Skirby?
Yeah, I just want to congratulate all our retirees. I mean, if we look at the list here of all of our incredible staff that's retiring, I just want to wish them congratulations, especially one of a very near and dear teacher, Mrs. Hills. She taught 4th grade at Applegarth, and she absolutely will be missed. I know the students and the parents absolutely love and adore her, and I wish her all the best in all of her endeavors. And this list, you know, Lori at the office of Oak Tree, Fern at the middle school, all of these names, just Mrs. Morelli down at the board office, we're losing incredible amount of staff, high quality teachers, high quality staff members. I wish them all the luck, and I really hope that, you know, when we find replacements, that they can fill half of the shoes of these people.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let us move on to the public forum. Mr. Mazzola, do we have anybody in line to speak?
Yes, Madam President, I have Shaw. Shaw, you're up next. I'm going to unmute your mic. Would you like to be on camera? Oh, sorry.
Me?
Go ahead. Hello?
No, I don't need to be on camera. Can
Thank
you hear
you.
me?
Yes, Roshni Shaw, could you just say your name again and your address, please?
Yep, absolutely. Roshni Shah, 10 Fieldview Drive. So I have two main questions. My first question is around the reopening and restart committee that took place on March 26th and last Friday. I assume these meetings will continue until we are back in the building full time. And I was just wondering, is there a reason for the lack of transparency around these meetings? I feel like, they should be recorded with meeting minutes captured for each meeting, just like our other committee meetings. And is there a reason that the administration is not doing this now? And if there is not a reason, can we start doing that just for, public transparency? My second question is just about, with regards to the reopening and restart committee, once again, I'm wondering about the decision made. So I noticed that in the slides Dr. Alvik presented, there was a decision to remain as we are, 5 half days and then go back full day in September. So does the board get to vote on that decision to go back full day? Does the board get any input on that, or is that a decision driven by the committee? And I actually had a final question around the timeline for the referendum. So I just wanted to thank the board for passing that motion. But if you can help with the first two questions, that would be great. Thank you.
I think Dr. Alvik would address that. Dr. Alvik?
So the restart committee is a working district committee. It's not a board committee. So doesn't fall under those bylaws. We have a lot of staff and parents who are on that committee, and I want to encourage that we continue those conversations and open conversations. I think if we were recording them, I'm not sure we would have the open conversations that we're having. But that was the point of this evening's presentation, was to share out some of the information that was shared. Any changes that are made to any of our protocols or plans are always communicated out very quickly. They don't wait for a board meeting to have that done. The decision to remain as we are is an administrative decision. That was my recommendation to the committee. And that is something that falls under the superintendent purview.
Okay, thank you. Is there an option to share the way you shared the slides today, but is there an option to share those slides after a restart and recovery meeting has taken place? Is that an option via email or something like that? Just because sometimes to wait a month to get an update, it's a little bit of a longer timeline than maybe some parents would like.
But again, any changes that are made to any of our protocols are shared out immediately after the meeting. They don't wait. I do not wait till a board meeting. And we don't always have a presentation at the committee meeting. The committee meeting may just be an agenda. For example, the April meeting that we just had were just 3 agenda items. So it's not always a presentation. It's not a presentation to the committee. It's more of a working meeting.
Dr. Alvik, how are you sharing those out? When you say you're sharing them out, what's your medium for?
Any changes are shared out through the COVID updates, those emails that are sent on Tuesdays or Fridays.
Great, thank you.
And the agenda and the presentation that I did this evening is I've already sent to the tech department to be added to the restart webpage.
And can we put that on Facebook page as well?
The PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, is that a problem, or you want to just keep it to the district website?
I can ask Mr. Feldman to share it out as a link, but we can't share it
as a link.
Yeah,
Okay.
as a link.
That's fine.
Yep.
Ms. Shaw, you had a third? Was that your?
No, I just wanted to thank you for passing the motion for the referendum timeline. I mean, with regards to my other two questions, I still think there can be more transparency. So I don't know about, just because it's a working session, I don't necessarily think that is a reason to not update the parents until the next board meeting. Understanding that if it's a working session, it can't be recorded, that's fine. But I think this is something that is really critical in many parents' minds. And I think it'd be great not to have to wait a month to hear what transpired, even if there is no update in terms of protocol. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzola?
Madam President, next is Ms. Palella. Ms.
Yes,
Palella,
thank
I unmuted you. Would you like to be on video? Ms. Palala? She just muted herself, I guess.
Okay, so next, and if, in case she raises her hand again, as she comes back, you can put her on again.
Ms.
Next
Palala, are
person.
you there? All right, I'll move on to the next one.
I'm here. Can you hear me at
Oh,
all?
there you
She
go.
is.
Thank you so much. Deborah Palella, 15 Louise Lane. Sorry about the technical difficulty.
No problem.
A few quick things. My first is I wanted to let you know I'm very appreciative of Friday updates from the high school. They're fantastic. Besides everything else we are getting, they have been very thorough for like the last 2 months, and it's a wonderful thing to see detailed things that are happening in the future and may happen. Actually gives us nice hope to know that things are moving forward for junior proms, graduations, etc. I was wondering separately if this may not even be the right forum to ask, but quite some time ago during a board meeting, perhaps years ago from the mayor prior, it was mentioned about the boys' home and the property, and there were letters sent to the state asking to relinquish the property or hand it over to Monroe schools. And I was just curious if anything has ever that you are aware of, or if that's a town question, if anything has ever happened with that. Not that we want the property, but it was just a question of it being out there, and it is quite expansive, even if we used it for fields. That was my first thing. My second and last thing is I was curious if there is a policy that requires teachers to put grades into Genesis within a given period of time, say 30 days or 7 days. If there is no policy, I'd like you to consider implementing one. And if there is a policy, I would like to know what it is. It's unfair to students who do work in early February not to see the grades in Genesis until the day that report cards are given at the end of April. So I just wanted to ask if there is a policy regarding that the teachers have to adhere to.
I don't know, Dr. Lehman or Dr. Alvick, who would like to take that one?
I don't know off the top of my head. I would have to look up to that, but that shouldn't be happening. So if that's an issue, please reach out to either Dr. Lehman or myself or Dr. Higgins at the high school.
Okay, I will, and it's certainly not just me having that issue.
Thank you.
Anything about the other property? Do you know if is that a Board of Education or is that a town?
Now, I let me just briefly say, not having the latest details, that is a township issue with the state, and I do believe the township has reached out. I think Councilman DePiero is on the board or a commission that has a lot to do with that, so you might want to reach out to him. But also, from my understanding, it's many years in the making and many years long. I don't believe the state has relinquished that land.
Okay.
But again, I think Councilman DePiero would be the one to contact on that. He seems to
Okay,
know.
thank you. I wouldn't be surprised. It's already been several years since it's already been talked about. So
They haven't closed it yet either, so I don't
Right.
know, about how they're doing that.
okay, and I will follow up regarding the policy if there is one in place. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Next, Mr. Mazzola.
Madam President, next I have Ms. Laven.
Okay.
Ms. Laven, I unmuted you. Would you like to be on video?
No video, thank you. My name is Miriam Lavin, 15 Golfview Court, Monroe. First, I just want to echo what Deb Palella just said regarding the Friday updates and moving forward. Excellent communication, thank you very much. And at 9:17 p.m. on or about, Dr. Alvick made the comment that the intention of the board and of the school district is to go full 5 days, open up completely. I waited 2 hours and 17 minutes to hear that, so thank you very much. I've been advocating for the opening of the schools. I hope that continues to go through. I hope the school district and the Board of Education and the state continues to open up our schools. We have to get our children back into school. I'm not really even sure how fruitful these afternoon sessions have been. Many of the teachers that I have spoken to say that they may have one kid that joins in the afternoon. I think we need to make every effort possible to go back full day. Whatever it is we need to do, we need to do it. It is imperative for our children. They need to be in school full days, back to normal. It's been well over a year now. We've made great strides. And I know there's the whole orange-yellow thing, but we need to, I understand to abide by that, but there's other things we can be doing. So I encourage and I'm continuing to advocate for the BOE, Board of Education. I sometimes joke about calling it the Board of Virtual Learning, but I really want the BOE and the school district to make every effort to get our schools back to normal, opened up 100% with whatever protocols we have to do, whether it's the plexiglass, the masks, whatever it is, we can do it. And we have an obligation to our students, to our children, to give them the best education possible. So I continue to advocate for that, and I applaud the updates, and I'm looking forward to Dr. Alvick and everyone else to continue to open up our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzola?
Madam President, next we have Mr. Oleski. Mr.
Oh, yes,
Oleski,
thank you.
I unmuted you. Would you like to be on camera?
No camera necessary.
Hi, Mr. Oleski.
Yes, Michael Oleski, 50 Mayberry Avenue. Just maybe one comment I'd like to make today. Maybe a little unprepared to make it, but I'll say it nonetheless. First off, I want to just voice my support for the proposal resolution that Andy Peluri had made about putting a timeline together or a schedule. Of course, Andy, I know, is a transportation engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer that was involved with major projects for an industrial company. The timeline or schedule we're talking about should have each and every one of the activities that's going to be required that leads up to the referendum identified, put in some type of sequential order. And of course, each one of those activities should have some time requirement assigned to it. And as Andy, I'm sure, knows, and maybe some of you know, it's only after these things are put in sequence with the time requirement that you can actually stand back and take a look at and say, hey, that's the very earliest we could be ready for a referendum. So yeah, I fully support that. Now, one other comment I'd like to make, and I know this might upset some people, but in all honesty, where I used to work, we had a very lean workforce, like district administration has. And if we had a major project coming up that would tax the organization, we actually had an engineering consultant, Jacobs Engineering, by the way, that in fact we would tap to work our major projects. And my thought is, and I think it's probably borne out by what we've seen the last couple of years, dealing with the school overcrowding problem and all of the problems that we've had trying to get monies allocated towards major repairs and major renovations. I got a pretty good feeling at this point in time that the board, the BG&T committee might be better served by looking at an outside consultant to come in and actually take things from where they are right now. And actually, there's been a lot of good preparatory work done by a couple of different committees, as far as some proposals and ideas, and basically turn it over to an outside consultant or third-party consultant to put together this overall plan for a referendum. And I guess the reminder is, the referendum, it should be one that's not only dealing with new construction, either a new school and or renovations, but as we've been reminded on and off, the major renovations and repairs that are necessary in the district. And one final comment, I'm not recommending them because I don't think things turned out too well for Edison Township. But that same architect, SSP, that's working on the estimate for a Claremont-like school, they were the ones that actually put together the overall referendum plan and did many different estimates for Edison Township when they put together their program a year or two ago. Again, it was unsuccessful, and I'm not going to stand here and say that I recommend them, but certainly there's at least a few other companies that maybe could be considered. And yes, it costs money, but if you're going to be talking spending something in the order of maybe 75 to, who knows, $125 million. Yeah, maybe hiring an outside consultant for maybe some $50,000-$60,000 might not be a bad idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oleski. Mr. Mazzola.
Madam President, next we have Dr. Parab.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Parab.
Yeah, Prakash Parab, 33 Dana Drive. First of all, congratulations to our teachers who are retiring. They are the best, and let them have a good retirement. Next thing is I attend governor's meeting. What is happening now is most of the schools are moving from remote to hybrid and in person. Okay, that is the trend going on. Today, governor said that. Okay, so but one thing I would like you all to give a choice for the parents. We don't know where we are going to be in September, August when we open up, but there should be a choice for the parents to choose between hybrid or in person. I love to have. I'm sending my son to in person to TCNJ. So let us do that. Think over it, okay? And respect to auditors, we have $135 million budget. Come on, guys. We need a transparency. Why need a same auditor all the time? Paying $50,000. Who pays the least? Who accept the least? We are going to choose. Come on. Come on. Let us make it transparency. The same auditor cannot be there for more than 2 or 3 years. Let the board decide about it. So let us make changes in the auditors. Let us have transparency and move forward. And regarding the public forum, I'm disappointed. How you can write in the minutes who sends by email? This is Bunny. Can you bring? I'm on public forum. How you all can write entirely in the minutes? The gentleman, I know whom, they are standing for election. They are all propaganding, and you all write what this guy sends you all by email. Come on, man. I stay here till 10:30. What I say, write that. And Dr. Kozak also indirectly, the board tied his hand. So come on, let us be transparent. Let us give opportunity to superintendent. But board, you guys are elected. You all can always ask good question to the superintendent. There is nothing wrong. So let us proceed on that. Another one thing, let us, mayor is allow, it is good what mayor is doing, but we pay 20% of our taxes go to Middlesex. They are not giving us a favor. Let them, there should be a direct coordination with Board of Education and Middlesex County. Why we have intermediate council and mayor to be there? We have to change, we have to act on it. So regarding my question is, this is close to my heart. Do we have a chance? I want all the students to go to in person, I tell you, but depending on the circumstance, governor cannot dictate. We are taxpayers. Governor cannot dictate. He can dictate the law, but the district, local district and BOE has a responsibility to decide what community needs. So are we going to give a chance of remote in August or September when we start?
Dr. Alvick, I guess you need to answer that question.
I don't have an answer to that question yet. We're waiting for guidance from the governor. We do have to wait for his guidance to find out what the options are.
No,
Because
if my question is, well, thinking ahead, if the governor says every student has to go remote, this is not China or Russia here. We are a democratic country. We have to, the community has to decide, looking at the numbers, what is the choice of the parents. No one can be dictator in this country. So my question to you, directly hypothetical. The governor says every student has to be in person.
Okay. All right, Dr. Parab, we've got your question. We've run out of time for that. But Mr. Gagliardi, can you make a brief statement about what we are obligated to do under the state? And also, Dr. Prob, I just want to tell you, the local finance board, again, the state, changed some of the obligations of the board in public session, that we do have to read some of the letters that come in through the video, but we do appreciate all those who actually participate and are online watching this. So, Mr. Gagliardi, for the other question, please.
Sure. So it's not just local districts, as Dr. Albeck was explaining, but the entire state that's waiting to see what happens, presumably with regard to the variants and the vaccine rollouts. The only reason right now that you're allowed to offer virtual learning and have it count toward the 180 days is because with the governor's declared state of emergency, he has been permitted to circumvent what is otherwise required by state statute. So there's going to be a point in time, no matter what communities want, no matter what district wants, where the virtual option is not going to count toward 180 days. Most people assume that that's going to be starting in September. So there is a limit to what a local district can offer because some of the options currently available will not be available legally when the governor says it's time to go back to school and these virtual options are not going to count for teachers or students in order to satisfy the statutory 180-day requirement. So it is a wait and see, not because there aren't options to be discussed, but because some of those options are going to be taken off the table by the governor between now and Labor Day. No question about it.
Okay, thank you. Shall we move on? Mr. Mazzola.
Yes, Madam President. Next up, we have Pradeep Melam.
Yes.
Pradeep, I am
Pradeep
unmuting you now.
Melam.
Would you like to be on video?
No, I don't want to be on video.
Okay.
This is Pradeep Melam for Jake Place.
Yes.
Good evening, board. Thanks for passing the budget. I have multi questions. I'll finish my questions first. Question number one regarding the budget. I want to see the line item, whether it's in assets or accounts receivable. Where is the money that owed by Jamesburg is part of the budget document. I skimmed through the 2019-20 and 2021 budget. I didn't find out that line item. I want the exact line item where I can find that number. Second point I have is regarding the 180-day mandatory school course days. So in this year, we had at least 5 days of loss of education because of the tech issues or DDoS attacks or anything. How are we going to compensate those 5 days or 6 days or whatever the number of days that we had lost? And today is another example. Why don't we change our provider? Why don't we strengthen our firewall? If you want, I can go on like 1 hour lecture on that one because I do that for living. Okay. But I'm not going to do that one. But we need to up our game and we need to be cautious because don't argue that like there are several other schools are being attacked because and there are many other schools are not being attacked. We want to be in that bucket. We don't want to be in the other bucket, right?
Yes.
Yes. The point number 3, and in the same county, we are in South Brunswick, East Brunswick, Edison, where there are 5-day school is going on, 1 full day schedule. Why don't we? Why we need to have more meetings? What is stopping us to open for 5 days full day schedule? How long the course is going to be covered in the half day schedule? And in one of the schools, the teacher sent an email to the parents of remote students saying that I need to manage kids in the school. I am assigning some assignments to the remote students. They have to do an independent study because I need to focus on the kids. Why this discrimination is coming up? Why the teacher need to focus more on in-house students and less on remote students? And this has to be addressed from top to down bottom. My final comment, one of the board member mentioned to table one particular item. He decided he bring an analogy to the public that Dr. Alvich is the CEO of this district and we are hand tying because of particular item. If she's a CEO, the BOE is the directors. Okay, the public is the shareholders. Public can decide on who is there on the C-band executives, CEO, CFO, COO, everybody. Okay, I don't want a pleaded guilty on 3 counts and ethics less CFO in the company where I invested, where I am paying a fee for. Okay, the people are not ready to have a chief CFO to run this company if Dr. Alvich is a CEO. So the board of directors have a right to void CEO's decision sometimes when it is bad for the company. I want that to be understood to that particular board member. Thank you. And I think I'll get the answers for the line items that I asked for and why we are not opening the school for 5 full day schedule.
Mr. Gorski, the line item, please.
Line item for the revenue for the Jamesburg tuition is.
Not the revenue, please. Not the revenue.
Whoa, beg your pardon?
I'm not asking for not the revenue. I'm asking for the balance of the what they owe us.
Balance of the debt
amount they owed us.
The amount of debt owed.
Sorry about that alarm. That the timer broke and I had to put it on my phone.
Okay.
What was the question that the gentleman asked? Because I took down what line item is the Jamesburg tuition revenue in?
No, the balance and the amount of debt owed. The balance of the debt owed.
Gone over this so many times. It's about 1.6 million. I don't have the schedule with me. 1.5 million might be down to now.
I think he reviewed the budget and he was asking specifically for the line item where you can find it in the budget. That was sort of the point of the budget being available.
Exactly. I'm not asking the value of it. I'm asking where can I find in the budget document.
It's you have to understand that the school district budget is an annual budget, and the Jamesburg agreement expands beyond one budget year. So you're not going to find the full outstanding amount owed from the Jamesburg School District in the operational budget.
Where can I find in the district documentation? All over the district documentation. Where can I find year-over-year change of that particular number?
Madam, the time's up.
Mr. Gorski, we have gone through this a lot. I will have this discussion privately.
I mean, is there anything else I can answer on the topic? I provided with the board schedule after committee at the board meeting. There's approximately $1.4 million owed. It's not in the operational budget as it's not expected to be revenue next year. The agreement expands over the next few years. It has gone down, but you're not going to see it as a revenue source in the budget for that receivable amount. What you will see is an amount that Jamesburg is overpaying the amount of tuition in the revenue income line item for tuition.
Revenue income line item?
Yes, it's for tuition revenue. And that shows the amount of money that Jamesburg is over budgeting for tuition compared to the actual costs. And that's what we've gone over time and time again on this topic.
Dr. Albert, do you want to briefly talk about the 5-day school question?
I did go over it during the superintendent's report, but there were a lot of considerations that we looked at. One was purchasing additional tables, additional dividers for lunches and we would have to change the schedules for all students. And for the consistency of students, the recommendation was to remain in the current schedule that we're in. Also looking at transitions. Our teachers and our students have transitioned already multiple times this year. To do it for just a couple of weeks, don't think that that would be the best thing for our students or our staff. Also looking at our assessments. We want to make sure that we get through our spring MAP assessments with all of our students so that we have the data to prepare and plan for September to make sure that, and the summer, to make sure that we're assuming supporting all of our students.
And could you and Dr. Lehman look into the suggestion about what a teacher said about remote students? Could you?
Yeah, he would have to give us the information about where that's coming from, because that's
I'll let-
obviously the first time I'm hearing of any of that. So if you could let us know where that's coming from, we can absolutely look into it.
Okay. Mr. Mazzola, anyone else?
Madam President, we have Ms. McPherson. Ms. McPherson, I unmuted you. Would you like to be on camera?
No, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lillian McPherson, 5 Ellingham Avenue. Just 3 quick things. On the auditor, I think it's a good idea. As we see with the board members, we vote for them every couple of years, so it's a good idea to do the same with the auditor. Also, could the board members possibly look at the prior request for proposal to see what may have caused the lack of responses initially to kind of get more responses in the future? Separately, on the restart committee, COVID-19, so not specific to the restart committee. At the start of the year, the district had similar issues to other districts in our area. What have those conversations with our neighboring districts led to, as far as how they resolved or overcame their issues, and what's causing us not to? And then if that has not happened, could those conversations start with neighboring districts for the next upcoming year? And then lastly, Ms. Arminio, I think you've done an amazing job. I know my voice is shaking. I wouldn't have done this prior to, but just engaging the community. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Dr. Alvik, I think the question about discussing it with other, I think that would be a question that we'll talk about perhaps in policy and or personnel going forward in all of our committees.
I also believe that every district has their own unique circumstances. So I have meetings every single week with the county superintendents in Middlesex County. And we all talk about all of our challenges and all of the different pieces and the uniqueness of each district. So it's not that we can't open up. I don't think that it's the best thing for us to do for our students right now. I think the best thing for us to do right now is to plan for September and not give our students or our staff another transition.
Okay, so you own that decision as the superintendent of the board of Monroe Township. Okay. Mr. Mazzola, anyone else?
Yes, I have, Madam President, I have Ms. Aziz.
Yes.
Ms. Aziz, you are unmuted. Would you like to be on camera?
No.
Yes, Ms. Aziz.
Hi, Sarah Aziz, 3 Lancelot Drive. I was concerned by the earlier comment Mr. Gorski made about how when there was a previous RFP for a new auditor, the Samuel Klein Company was the only bid that we had, which raises the question, why don't other accounting firms want to work with us? So, my concern is that if we put out another RFP, what if nobody responds? And how long can we go without an auditor? What are the ramifications of going a long time without an auditor? Could we be at legal risk and audit risk? So if you could answer those questions.
Well, I certainly can't answer the legal question, but I would certainly assume we would need to wait and see if that even occurs. It might be a moot point, hopefully, if people apply. Mr. Gagliardi, do you want to briefly make that a comment?
The short answer is you have to have an auditor.
Right. And we will.
Right.
Mr. Mazzola, anyone else?
Madam President, there is nobody else.
Okay. So it looks like we can close the public forum by a show.
Madam President, I beg your pardon, I had one that was submitted via email.
Oh, you are correct, yes. If you'll read that, Mr. Gorski is going to read one that was submitted by email, that we are obligated under the new rules because of COVID to read.
Okay, I'm starting the timer as I begin. This is from Carmen Alvarez. Email address is cadev73@yahoo.com. My name is Carmen Alvarez. I have 5 children that attend Monroe Township schools and I am speaking today regarding the district's COVID-19 protocols, particularly those that pertain to what the district is referring to as presumed positive cases. According to the district protocol updated on April 7, 2021, a presumed positive case is anyone displaying the following symptoms: fever, nausea, vomiting, cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, new loss of smell, new loss of taste, fatigue, sore throat, chills, rigors, myalgia, parentheses, muscle aches, headache, diarrhea, congestion, runny nose. The presumed positive case is sent home as well as any close contacts, which are defined as any student that was less than 6 feet of the sick child, regardless that they were masked and or behind a partition. All affected students are then asked to quarantine for 14 days, and asymptomatic students are not provided the opportunity to take a COVID test on the 5th day and return to school prior to the 14-day quarantine period. Imagine that your healthy child is excluded from in-person instruction because someone has allergies, feels tired, or complains of a headache. According to the CDC, asymptomatic individuals can test between 5 and 7 days following exposure. Symptomatic individuals can test as soon as they have symptoms. Currently, the district does not accept any test results from asymptomatic individuals and requires that symptomatic individual not test until day 5. In addition, the sick student cannot be forced to get a test. Thus, the quarantine period cannot be shortened for the other students affected if the sick child's family chooses not to test their child. How unfair is this for those of us that do not have the luxury of working from home for 14 days, for those of us that have exhausted our sick time and family leave options? This already has occurred to 2 families on 2 occasions. The first occasion was January 28th when our 8-year-old second grader via virtual school told his teacher his nose was stuffy and that he could not smell his stuffed animal. Without being accused by the nurse, virtually or otherwise, we were told he has to quarantine along with his 2 siblings and 2 step siblings. The child is asymptomatic and suffers from allergies which have been properly documented with the school's district since he has been in kindergarten, yet this was completely disregarded. All 5 children were excluded until February 8th. The most recent occurrence was April 15th when we were told our 6th grader was close contact of a presumed case. He cannot return to school until April 30th. The child has a 504 plan and does not do well with virtual instruction. He now has been denied in-person instruction for 28 days thus far, even though none of our children have ever tested positive for COVID-19. As you can imagine, during allergy season, there may be many presumed cases. In addition to students who suffer from allergies, the present district protocol treats students with asthma disproportionately since those students may cough often, have difficulty breathing, or experience shortness of breath. This is a direct violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I wrote an email to the superintendent and the supervisor of nurses, Marietta Ruella, following the second quarantine incident. Mrs. Ruella told me that day and very professional and took the time to explain the protocols. She prefaced her explanation by letting me know she is not a medical professional and that she follows the recommendation of the school nurses. My husband was told by Deborah Force, a middle school nurse, that the district protocols are based on Department of Health guidelines. In reviewing these guidelines, which I've attached, the only presumed that's the end of time. I still have about a page to go. Beg your pardon? I'm sorry, you're muted.
For goodness, nope. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just complete that paragraph, not the whole page.
Okay. My husband was told by Deborah Force, middle school nurse, that the district protocols are based on Department of Health guidelines. In reviewing these guidelines, which I have attached, the only presumed positive case is to quarantine. The only time close contacts are to quarantine are when they are in close contact with a confirmed COVID-19 individual. Please refer to page 16 and 19 of the guidelines. Also, let us not forget that all students are masked and sometimes behind partitions, so the likelihood of getting sick from a presumed case is extremely low. After all, isn't that why we have employed these mitigation protocols and spent money on upgrading the filters in all the school buildings?
Okay. I guess that was a long paragraph, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the administration has heard that, and I, perhaps, Dr. Alvick, have you already responded to this, or no, this was just for today?
No, I know that Ms. Ruella had a conversation with her and responded to her questions.
Okay. All right, I'll probably respond to it as well. Okay, and we are finished, Mr. Mazzola, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Sorry I cut you off there. I thought it was going to be 2 sentences or so. Okay, the next agenda item is, let me be clear, public forum. We will be going into closed session. I'll read the closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education in the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJ SA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21 to discuss the following subjects: harassment, intimidation, and bullying, harassment, intimidation, and bullying appeal, a board discussion for the MTBOE SSA contract, that is a staff contract, and a discussion with counsel regarding pending litigation. There are 3 litigation pendings that Mr. Gagliardi will discuss. Following the closed session, the action may be taken, and in this case, there probably will be action taken after this closed session. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. And I just want to make a quick statement that based on some previous associations and experiences, I will be recusing myself from 2 out of the 3 litigation issues. So we can go into closed session. May I have a motion to go into closed? Oh, and it'll probably be at least a half hour, if not longer. Dr. Alvick, how long will the appeal take, do you think?
I would expect it probably to be closer to an hour.
To an hour?
For all of those things, yes.
Oh, for all of those things. And the first, oh, okay. All right, it may be an hour, and it is 11 o'clock. I know that the board members are very reluctant to go past 12 o'clock. Mr. Gagliardi, is there anything on this agenda for the resolution that can be postponed to the next meeting?
Unless the board has a lot of questions, Madam President, I think I can cover what's going on with those 3 litigations in less than 5 minutes.
Okay, so, and the others we have to address, so.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we will have to go in, oops, motion to go into closed session, please.
Motion.
Second it.
All in favor?
5-minute break or no?
I beg your
2-minute break?
pardon?
2-minute break? 3-minute
Yeah.
break? What do we?
How about a 3-minute break, and then we will, because we have to leave this, and yes, Mr. Gorski.
Madam President, who moved that motion to go into close?
I did.
Ms. Kirby,
And,
Thank you.
I seconded it. Yep.
okay,
Thank you.
excellent, and a 2-minute break.
You said 3
Okay.
minutes, Michelle.
Oh, 3?
The
Okay.
blood
thanks.
got to flow, you know?
I gotta go.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I believe we can resume the meeting. We are out of closed session. I believe the only action that will be taken for this evening will be a vote to approve or disapprove of a negotiated contract with the support staff. We ready, everyone? Mr. Gorski, I'm going to read it correctly now, right? I hereby move that the Monroe Township Board of Education approve the previously submitted collective negotiations agreement between the Monroe Township Board of Education and the Monroe Township Board of Education Support Staff Association for the period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024. The board president and the business administrator / board secretary are hereby authorized and directed to take all necessary steps to implement this action of the Board of Education. And that's today's date, April 26, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Katie? Second?
Second.
Mr. Tefano, any discussion?
Mr. Arminio, you moved the motion, so who was the next person to?
Oh,
second?
Ms. Belko, Ms. Belko. Okay. Shall we have a roll call? If there's no discussion, we'll have a roll call. Go
Ms.
ahead.
Belko,
Yes.
Ms. Bierman,
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella,
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pelori,
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky,
Yes.
Ms. Siegel,
Yes.
Ms. Skirby,
Yes.
Mr. Tefano,
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we do have one thing. Mr. Mazzola, is there anyone in the public wishing to speak only on this resolution that was just passed?
I don't see any hands up right now.
Okay. Seeing none at this time, we will schedule the next scheduled Board of Education meeting is May 10th, 2021. Anything else need to be said this evening? Beside, do I have a motion to close, to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Everyone is exhausted. I thank you all once again, and again,
That was-
sorry for the long meeting.
Tefano and Belko, I beg your pardon?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Gorski.
Hey, Dory, can I
Motion.
ask you a quick question? Any chance that the juniors that are coming to the high school tomorrow to take the SATs, can I assume it's safe to say they could drive their cars without a, so to speak, parking pass for tomorrow?
I don't have the answer to that question. That
I
would
mean,
be a
what's the
Dr.
worst that's
Higgins
gonna happen? Are they
question.
gonna tow my kid's car or?
I doubt they'll
like,
tow their car.
I'm not getting up at 7 o'clock to drive them, so. I would hope that they'll, there's enough spaces there, right? There's no school going on.
No, everyone else is virtual.
Okay,
Okay,
well,
do we
we'll
have a-
keep our fingers crossed then. I'll have them put a note in the window.
All in
Good
favor,
question, Paul.
all in favor of adjourning? Oh, you're in
No,
favor.
no, I'm just
good.
voting
We're
yes.
good.
I'm just voting
Okay,
yes.
Voting yes.
good night, everyone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks,
Bye.
Dory.
Good night, everybody.